you getting yourself ready for our show?
Guys, Bobby Roast Beef here with another episode of Jigs and Bigs. I got Shawn the Fisherman fresh from Lake George, New York, and I got the one and only, well, now you're going to know who the fuck Joe Brown is. You know why? Because he's back from Lake Hartwell, and he had himself one hell of a time at the ABA National Championships. We're going to get all the details about all that stuff. I had my own little personal win this week. We'll talk about that. It's kind of been a monkey on my back for years, and no, I'm not talking about crippling addiction. We're going to talk about something worthwhile here, fish. We also have an unboxing of the brand new Dark Horse tackle box. It's a collaboration with the Catch Podcast, which this kind of like podcast cross-pollination, I guess. Well, all kinds of good stuff to talk about this week, guys. We have results from our winter giveaway. That's coming up actually in the FTG spot because one of those entries is also an FTG. We also have, all kinds of good stuff we got to get to for you guys. You don't want to miss out on any of this stuff. Good news for everybody on Jigs and Bigs. Go ahead, get yourself something delicious to enjoy. We will see you in just a bit with much more. Good show after this. You know, I'm going to agree with Dark Horse Tackle. I think that's what they said. I think they screw it and they went fishing as well. But that's all good. Guys, welcome to another episode of Jigs and Bigs. I can only say I hope our show today can hold a torch to the string of amazing shows that we've been on recently. Guys, this week we have another brand new guest too that I should have mentioned in the intro, but we've got Jason Fletcher. Jason Fletcher is a content creator in the overland space from a very, very popular overland YouTube channel and podcast called All Things Overland. If you're looking to get into the woods and kind of like venture off grid a little bit, this is a great place to start. We talk a lot about Jason's stuff really does kind of cater more toward those that are just kind of dipping their toe in and not like jumping, into the deep end right away necessarily. It's a great way to kind of get yourself started and stuff. And he's a really, really good teacher. That's coming up in our third segment. We got so much good stuff. Guys, how are you this week?
Phenomenal. Tired, recovering.
Yeah, all of the above. You've had one hell of a week, dude. I
did.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a day where I wasn't like, I wonder how Joe's doing. I am so jealous, man. That is so awesome, dude. And Shawn did a little bit of traveling. I'm a little bit jealous with that, too. You had yourself one hell of a time with great friends and partners of the show.
The herd has been thinned. I
love that. And it's a win. It's something everybody can get behind. I've had a crazy week. I recorded some quality content with Becca. That's coming up. We have this episode here. And I don't know if you guys had listened. I did a podcast recently, Kayak, Bass, and Beers, with Armando. And he had me on the show. And I got to tell you, don't ever watch some content where you're talking about yourself if you're highly baked, because I went on thinking, I'm like, I can't watch this. I'm so long-winded. And I was just cringing the whole time. But apparently people have been listening to it. But what's great is I've got Armando on the schedule. We're going to record this week for a future show, which will be awesome. And it's been an amazing stretch of great quality content, a whole lot of fun. And I got to be perfectly honest with you. I have been having to grind this month for the multi-species scavenger hunt that's going down. And I've been absolutely loving it. Like, absolutely loving it. I can say this much. I have not opened up the Fishing Chaos app and had it bring me that level of joy. And not because I'm killing it, because it's killing me. But, like, I'm enjoying the climb. You know what I mean? And it's taking me some places.
Bobby, you're not doing bad at all.
Oh no,
you're in
I'm
fourth
not.
place.
I'm not. Yeah,
Well,
I'm in
1, 2,
fourth
3,
place.
fifth place. Fifth place.
Yeah, I'm making that. But like the work I've had to put in for this is crazy. Well, actually, let's just fucking talk about it. Let's just go ahead and go for it. Because this week I kind of alluded to a situation that happened to me on the water. One of my what is slowly becoming one of my favorite go-to spots to fish is a spot up the Shears that is super unique. And Shawn has stated that this does not fish like a typical body of water in this region at all, that it feels like something entirely different. And this body of water proves to have a very large, healthy, and diverse amount of species. So if you're looking for a multi-species experience on a good body of water, this is a great place to go. So I'd gone out on Monday. And this is not a small pond. I mean, it's a decent size. It's not a large lake by any stretch of the word, but it's a good sized body of water. It's got some real depth to it as well. And there's a couple of spots in there that I've had some really amazing experience over the last year. And this is one of those bodies of water that I kind of had to conquer a little bit. I fished it for the first time with Tim Jakes in his boat. Shirtless Timmy Jakes on his boat. We had
Topless Timmy Jakes.
Timmy Jakes. That's what it is. Topless Timmy Jakes. And I think the first time I was there, I got skunked. I'd been there another time afterwards, and I mean, it was just like, but just to be able to even see like the diversity of species that are in there, it's crazy. So I went there specifically because it had some fish that were on my list. I needed to get on some smallmouth, so they offer smallmouth. Boom. Okay, great. Pike is another one that I needed. I already had a chain pickerel, so I was good there. But also some of those other smaller species like yellow perch, rock bass, crappie. I needed those, and trout.
White perch in there too.
White perch in there too, which I didn't realize until this last time I had gone out there. So I head out there on Monday, and Monday's weather was crazy. I had managed to edit the show late Sunday night and handle all my running around and stuff. I actually did a ton of work Sunday night to prep for the week so that Monday would be open. And I get out there, I launch the boat, and like the wind is just crazy. So I'm like, all right, cool. Now I happen to have a swim bait tied on. So this is just a 4-inch Kitech on like I think a 1/4 ounce or a 3/8 ounce jig head. And I'm, just kind of swimming that along as I'm making my way out to this one spot. And I got a follow from a large smallmouth, a good sized smallmouth, noses right up to the bait, right by the boat, and then just turns away. And I'm like, all right, cool. Store that in my memory bank and figure out what's going on. I get to this other spot where I want to be, and I'm throwing around this bait, not getting bit. And I was like, all right, well, let's throw something really loud. So I tied on that Picasso shock blade from that last month's Dark Horse Tackle box. And I had, I get out there and I start throwing this around, and it's I think it was like my third cast. I hook into a pike. It was like about 19 inches. Get him in the boat, measure him, everything's cool. I'm like, sweet, I got my point for the day. Now, for me, this is a big sigh of relief because it takes an hour to get to this body of water. And I've been going out and doing these sends often. So like when you're like, I need a point, it'd be great if I could at least walk away with some value toward the tournament, toward the scavenger hunt. That was a big relief for me because I'm like, okay, at least this drive wasn't 0 points. So I got a point for the day, and I'm like, great. Now, immediately in my mind, I'm like, there are fish here. I'm not leaving them. I'm going to continue to fish here, but I want to figure out what it was that happened with this smallie that just turned away. What was it about that bait? So I start thinking about that presentation. And what I did was I took one of these Giltech finesse jigs that I love so much. They're super light, 3/16 ounce. And I put a 3-inch paddle tail on there, a green pumpkin one with a little bit of chartreuse on the very end of the paddle tail just to give a little bit of extra flash. My first or second cast with that, I got hammered. Absolutely hammered. This fish starts pulling drag down deep, like going into the grass, burying into the as thick of the cover as that they can get into. And I'm like, is this a huge smallmouth? What is this? What do I even have on? And it dawned on me that the possibility is I could have a big pike. And I did. So I kept tension on that line. I couldn't, because this is one of my finesse combos. I can't exactly like horse them out of the grass. So I got an opportunity where this fish decided to run into open water and starts making its way, and drag is just screaming off of this spinning reel. Like, unbelievable. It's making sounds that I don't hear too often. So I am slowly just clicking that drag a little bit more to get some tension, and I start getting a handle of this fish and start bringing him back in. As he's clearly getting tired out, I'm able to get him back to the boat. Dudes, this pike was longer than my catchboard. Easily. I would venture to say that this was north of 30 inches all day long. But the thing about this fish that was just so ridiculous, really, was that when I got him to the boat, I'm looking at him, and the first thing that comes to my mind,
damn, boy, he's thick, boy. That's a thick ass boy. Damn.
No bullshit. The body of this pike was like this. I mean, just goddamn ridiculous. And I'm in absolute awe. And we had partly cloudy skies, but it happened to be relatively sunny at that moment. Actually, even when this fish bit. And I would say that this fight, getting him up to the boat, in total took almost 10 minutes. Like, it was ridiculous how long it took me to get this fish to the boat. I get him up there, and I'm going to reach for my net to go and scoop him, and he's like fighting. Then his head pops up by the bow of my kayak, and the sun just shines on one of his big-ass fucking chompers right as it glazes right up against my leader, and he cuts himself free. Down to, 14 feet or something, where I was ultimately sitting at that time, right back down. I'm like, you son of a bitch, with a nice little lip ring from Giltech. So if anybody out there catches a big-ass pike with a green pumpkin finesse jig hanging out of its mouth with a paddle tail, I want it back. I'm just saying, I want that shit back.
Finders keepers, Beefy. Finders keepers.
So that was a huge disappointment. Would have been great just to because I had... My previous PB for pike was like 12 inches. It was ridiculous. I've only ever caught one before, and it was tiny. That 19 broke my PB again, which was great, but this would have just hammered it. You know what I mean? Like, that would have been great. That's what I was after. So I decide, I make a change, and I go, and I'm like, the wind is just kicking my ass at this point. So I go, I'm going to go a little bit closer to the bank where it looks like it's a little bit more sheltered. And I get over there, and I start throwing a drop shot, and that's where the bluegill bonanza began. Again, we were doing this, and I'm like, I'm going to do this shit again with you guys? Come on. So I'm thinking maybe there's something of quality over here. I caught several. I realized that there's probably nothing of quality over there. Let's go ahead and move on. I had gone and thrown a drop shot over in some rocky areas, and I had a smallmouth, a really small smallmouth, on my hook, jumps and shakes off and takes off. And I was like, you know what? I'm right near the launch. Let's pack it up and call it a day. I got my point, that crazy experience with that giant pike, and, we'll call it a day. I had stuff that had to get done. So I get off the water. I head home. All is well. Tuesday, I took that day off from fishing. I did a little bit of housekeeping in the podcast world, did a couple of things there. And then Wednesday, I decided I was going to go back out. Now, this is where Shawn and I had gone to fish together. We went back to the scene of the crime. We went back up to that pond, up the shears, that lake, and we hit that water, and the conditions were a full 180 degrees different. We started out, we had some pretty good cloud cover. And it was dead calm, eerily in some ways. But it was nice to not have to just pedal nonstop to stay in your spot or, return back to it after you drift from it. So it was definitely kind of nice. We didn't have the big gust to deal with, but the bite was fucking tricky, right, Shawn? That was ridiculous.
Sucked ass.
It did. I laid into another pike, a smaller pike than my 19, on a Klondike Custom Creation spinnerbait, actually. I was just like, I was trying something different, and I was just throwing the obnoxious stuff first to see if I could get bit. And it happened to be where it was one of these things where I almost had given up. I was almost like, yep. Let's get more subtle because it's about that time. Nothing's really going on here. But this pike hit, and it had, I told you, Shawn, how it hit. It had the hook almost like on the outside of its mouth. Like it swiped at it. The hook point went in from the top of its snout and then came back out. So the lure was hanging out of its face, out of its mouth. And I'm
And
like,
so was the line, importantly.
yeah, that was the other important part, the line being out there too. So I'm like, all right. So I go, I don't think that this is necessarily a pattern. I'm going to throw it a little bit more and see what comes up. This was also my first time throwing a spinnerbait on that new combo, that new rod that I brought into the mix. And I like it. I like it a lot. For a medium heavy fast, it's nice. It's nice. And I made a couple of changes actually to a couple of different baits. Not getting bit. Shawn had laid into one. And then we made a group decision to make a move and go toward the south end of the pond where some of the rocks are. And I said, all right, sounds like a plan. Now, along the way, I kind of held back where I know that there is a rock pile that will tend to hold a lot of bluegill, but I've caught crappie off there too. And I hung back over there because this is in a spot where it being dead calm will certainly help. And I think I threw a drop shot down in there and got nothing. So then I started slowly making my way around where you were. And I made a mental note in my mind of where I was going to stop and where I was going to turn around. And when it comes to that section of this body of water, I like to do the same thing. I will fish to one side, fish down one side of the bank, and then when I turn around, I fish the deeper side. So I'm fishing to my left, you know? Mm-hmm. So I go and I get into this one area and I'm throwing this super, super tiny plastic on a drop shot, like super small, 2-inch little plastic bait. And I start again. It's the freaking bluegill armada that lays into Bobby roast beef. And I'm like, okay, well, this is confidence-wise, this is great. Like I know that this will get bit. It's a color presentation that they seem to like. Okay, this is a good thing. And then, but still, again, no point anywhere. I get down to the point where I had marked mentally in my brain and I'm like, I'm going to flip her around and keep going. I'm going to fish to the deeper side. It was probably my 4th or 5th cast onto the deeper side. I hooked into the smallmouth. I was able to enter into the tournament that day. Day 2 out for the week and we got a point. And it was good. It was really good. Now for this one, oh, you know what? To tell this story, to really do justice and tell this story, I have to do this.
Waiting for the drums.
So let's talk, ladies and gentlemen. Thursday I took off, but Friday I said I'm going hard. Now, this whole month I've been like, let's pick bodies of water that have trout. Let's figure this out. Let's go and find some trout. Let's talk about the day Bobby roast beef had on fucking Friday, okay? You might remember an episode where we had Tony from Fresh Baits on, and he had made a suggestion, and he brought up a body of water that I have a chip on my shoulder with, big time. And that body of water is the Swift River, arguably one of the best trout fisheries in the country. I mean, maybe on that list. It's ridiculous, the amount of people that travel here. And I've been fishing this body of water since I was 12 years old, and I've never caught a fish. Ever. And this Friday, that changed. I decided I was going to bring my kayak, my big-ass 13.5-foot Titan, native Titan, up to this body of water, and I was going to try and pedal myself upriver as far as I could, and then just do a drift down as far as I could. So I went up to a spot where there was a laydown that went right across the river. And I 100%, if I was truly motivated and wanted to, I could have got my kayak over this if I wanted to. But I used that as a marker. I turned around, and ladies and gentlemen, about my 3rd or 4th cast around some docks that popped over there, I caught a rainbow trout to put on my list. The curse is broken. I officially caught fish, but it doesn't stop there. I go and I continue to make my way down here. Now, surprisingly, what I thought was interesting was that there's a lot of vegetation in the Swift. Like, there are a lot of thick weeds in this one section where I was in the Swift. I was really surprised by that. So I was having to stop and kind of drift and pull weeds out of my prop. I considered the idea of just not pedaling at all, but the depth was there. It was okay. It just took a little bit of finagling to kind of make it happen. I drift down past, coming up to where I had launched from. And as I do, I can hear beep, 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 beep. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, is somebody getting towed? I'm like, I hope it's not me.
It was the goddamn hatchery truck.
Yes. Now I caught a rainbow, and this rainbow was spunky as hell. There was a conversation that was had in the boat while the rainbow was in here about behaving and not being an absolute pain in the ass. But if you look at all my pictures, and I'm 100% willing to take that hit because this trout's mouth was wide fucking open, and I think it's because
he was as amazed that I caught a fish there as I was.
So I'm taking it as a go, but a point's a point. Fuck off. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all right, cool. I was like, what are they stocking? Now, I don't know if I haven't had very many encounters with folks that are working for Massachusetts Wildlife stocking the waters. I can only assume that they didn't hear me. I was being funny. I've come up and I was like, imagine the look on my face when this good fortune appears in front of me and they're opening tanks and these fish are just falling into the water. And they're just and these are big ass fucking trout. Big. I'm like, I wonder if they got browns in here. What's going on? What's up? What are we stocking? They were all rainbows. They were all giants. These things would have, we'll get to how many of them I caught in a moment. So I go over and I'm like, I'm kind of waiting to see if I can get some feedback. What's the scoop? So I'm looking for brookies and browns because, again, with the new Jigs and Bigs scavenger hunt, now we're diversifying these trout. So instead of you caught any trout and it's worth a point, now now you got to go by specific species, and what are you able to dig up? So now I'm like, I got to get cute here. Now, I've never caught a brook trout in my entire life. That's one fish that's on my radar to catch. So I will definitely be going there because I know that they're in that river. In good numbers. So I'll be going back there for sure. I also need to catch a brown. So that's going to be something that I keep in mind. I go out and I'm fishing this area. I drift down to, and I think this is what they would consider the Swift River Reservoir. It kind of opens up to this much more wider area with much less current. But I will say this, it's shallow as hell. But it gave me some hope that I might be able to stumble on some other species that are in there. And as I loop around out of this and I'm making my way back up, I actually, while I was out, big shout out to Chloe. Called my daughter, said, hey, can you go pick your sister up for me? I'm having an amazing day out here. I'm like, I gotta make my way back upriver now or I'm going to fish for another hour or two. And she was like, yeah, I can go get her. No problem. So big shout out to Chloe. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I was out there just grinding it out. And I caught all these fish that I caught that day on a 2-inch plastic that was like a hybrid of, it truly was, I'd call it the beef rig, really. It's a combination of baits that I've pieced together that I've had unbelievable results with, and I feel really good about. So I'm gonna lean toward. I'm gonna call it the beef rig, and I'm throwing because you've heard of the chicken rig. No, that's the fucking beef rig, son. So I've been having great results. I come out of this reservoir. I start making my way upriver. Dude, I caught a largemouth at the Swift, small one, like a 10.5 incher, but I don't hear about largemouth being caught in any kind of numbers up there. But it makes perfect sense where I caught him because I feel like the habitat lends itself to being what a largemouth would like, more than the main river. Though I did catch him in the main river. So I'm making my way up and I see a lot of large rainbows just darting, zipping past me. And I have a good feeling that large group of stocked fish have acclimated a little bit and some of them are starting to drift out further from that initial landing spot where the launch is. So I get my fat ass over here and I make a handful of casts. Now, while I was on the water, I saw a total of 9 other kayaks on the water, all of them wreck kayaks. All of them, I believe, members of the dark crystal community. I am going to hell. I'm out there and there's a group of them loading up their boats. So I just kind of hold my position, pedaling with the current, and I'm making casts into this, it looks like a circle pit of rainbows. It is crazy. It's like going to see Anthrax in 92. That's what it felt like. And I'm like, this is wild. So I flip up the beef rig in there. I start making a cast back. I get a tap, but also they're just running around. So I may have just run this bait like into one of them. That might not have been a bite. Make another couple of casts in there, nothing. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I go and I grab my truck after this group had left the launch. I pull my boat up. I grab my truck, back the trailer on down, put the boat into the trailer. And before I drive off, I'm like, I'm going to make a few casts. There's nobody else here in the parking lot. So I go, I'm going to leave the boat right where it is and make a few casts. Because I still had to pull off to the side and take my rig apart, put my rods back and everything else. So I grabbed that rod that I was using with the beef rig, and I made 3 casts, and I caught 3 rainbows right there at the launch. All of them significantly larger than the one rainbow I caught further upriver. And I released the first 2, and I'm like, what am I doing? These are fresh out of the hatchery. Like, there is no mercury in these fish. I should 100% be taking my limit and stocking up on him. I caught the 3rd one, and I went to go grab him, and he shook off the hook, and I was just like, you know what? I actually have a lot going on this weekend. I don't want to have to make the priority to get these fish bled out now and then clean them. I got to get moving. So it all worked out in the end, but I'm going to be going back up there for those other species of trout that I'm looking for, primarily, especially the brook. I'm looking to catch my first brookie. I'll probably be there this week. I will probably utilize that body of water to get my kayak out. Like, you know, when it gets really cold, I'll wear my boots and, you know, dress appropriately. But the water temps in there were like 55, 56, much colder than some of the stuff I had been fishing earlier in the week. But that body of water is always cold. Always. It very rarely gets above that temperature. So, yeah, it happened. You know, I got on some fish, and I managed. The one that I entered was not from the hatchery truck, though. That was, what are the odds? What are the odds that I would have such good fortune? And then Saturday, I did an event. This kind of does relate to the show. I did a Jack and Jill. Jack and Jill events are a lot of fun. I had actually, every time I work a Jack and Jill, there's a raffle at a Jack and Jill. And if there's some cool prizes, I will put I'll buy some raffle tickets and enter. And, you know, they had a 28-inch Blackstone up for grabs at this party. So I sank too much in raffle tickets into this one prize, and I was not successful. Not successful, but something good did come out of this. The woman organizing the Jack and Jill is an old friend of mine, and she has an older cousin that I was great friends with in middle school and into high school. And great dude, loves the outdoors. And I saw him, actually, Joe met him over at the Springfield Sportsman Show. He was over there, and he's like, dude, I've been listening to Jigs and Bigs. He comes up to me at the party and says, he's like, I've been listening to Jigs and Bigs every week, like religiously. I can't get enough. It's like, dude, that is so awesome, man. That is so freaking awesome. Unbelievable. And he's asking me questions about fishing. So we have plans to go fish on Thursday. I'm going to bring him out to a spot because he's like, you know, I bought a bait caster, and you know, it's like, I don't know if it's for me, man. I just don't know if it's for me. And I'm like, we'll get you all set up, dude. I hooked him up with one of those Giltech finesse jigs. I'm like, this is one of the most versatile baits that I've been throwing. You know, I love it. And I mean, don't get me wrong, he can catch fish, but he's like, yeah, I want to understand this shit. So this could be a whole lot of fun. Found out he's got a nice little FJ too, Toyota FJ, and wants to go and do some fucking overlanding as well. So he'll get a good fucking use out of this. So Jeff, this episode has so much good shit in it. Let's see what happens. And that, gentleman, is basically my week in a nutshell. Yesterday was a nice, quiet day around the old beef house. You know, ran some errands with the wife, enjoyed some jigglers. I did get a piece of camping equipment in this week. Everything that I have been looking to get my hands on to kind of like streamline my camping stuff has finally come together. I got the propane conversion kit for my Coleman stove. And Sunday morning, I went out and I made the breakfast tacos out in the driveway just because to test it. You know, I want to make sure the stove works and everything beforehand. Works like a charm. Unbelievable. It's fantastic. Made a great pot of coffee. Girls love breakfast. My wife was apparently on strike. She thinks that breakfast shouldn't go in a taco formation. And I'm looking at her like, what, who hurt you? Who hurt you? But we have plans to go out first weekend in November. We're going to go camping. Should be a good time. And that is my week in a nutshell. Not too exciting, but definitely a good 30 minutes of this show. Shawn, how has your week gone?
I'm going to jump around a little bit because you already mentioned our Wednesday. Was it Wednesday? It was Wednesday. Trip
was
out
Wednesday.
to up to Shears, and that day just sucked. I was not dialed into whatever the fuck was going on. I didn't,
We did have new nomenclature that got toyed with that day that we can't talk about. But
very, very, very
quality.
un-PC.
Yeah.
So we're going to leave that alone.
Yeah.
But we had a good laugh because we're evil people.
We're terrible human beings.
Terrible, horrible pieces of shit. We did, we went out. You got your point in the smallmouth. All I got was a largemouth and I think a bluegill, if I'm remembering correctly. Maybe not. I don't know. I'd like to take a step back, however, to talk about Monday, where I did have a really, really good day. I think I mentioned last show that Monday I would be going out to the Cape with my son.
That's
We're
right.
going to hit a couple of his favorite ponds. One of his favorite, one of mine. His favorite pond. We went out. We went out twice to it. Once during the pandemic and once, I think, the year after. And it's a pond to me that was shallow. It looked great. And I felt I needed to hit it, really give it its due during high water. This small, tiny little, I don't even think it's 5 acres. This tiny little pond has a ring of scrub brush around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured that if the water got high enough and I was able to throw a jig into that crap, I would have some fun. And it's a dirty pond too. So this was lining up to be right up my alley. Well, we got out there Monday morning. Water's high, water's dirty, water's up over the scrub brush. My son immediately started throwing a Ned rig around and I don't know how many nibblers and perch. He got the quantity of that pond. I threw the bass jig around.
Yeah.
I started with like an 18. Then I got a couple little ones, 16, 14, something like that. And then I got a 20 and a half.
Nice.
And it was just the jig bite was on. So I was catching fewer fish, but mine were much bigger.
Yep.
And that's just that can easily be attributed to the size of our lures.
For
so
sure.
when you think about bigging, I was throwing a 3/8 ounce bass jig with a pit boss on it for a trailer. And it's a bulky, big bait. And they were all over it. So we had a good time with that. Went and grabbed lunch at Max.
Yep.
Then went over to another pond, and he actually didn't do so well. And I should make mention, this was his first day in the pedal drive boat that I really picked up for him.
Yep.
Mainly, but I'm sure my wife will get some use out of it as well. So he was actually in mine. With those two boats I bought.
Yep.
The used one that I went to Pennsylvania for. That one is my son's. But that is the one that I rigged up with the smaller fish finder, just a Garmin Striker unit.
Yep.
It's all rigged up. It's all set up. But I use that one because of that fish finder. All it is traditional sonar. Nothing spectacular.
Does the job, though.
Correct. And then the other one, the newer one that we picked up, he's been using that one because it doesn't have anything tricky. It's not tricked out yet. It's not tricked out, as the kids would say. He's using that one. That one is probably going to undergo some heavy modifications between now and the next year. I'm waiting on a couple of matters to resolve themselves that'll tell me which direction to go in with that boat. But he used that one, so he was zipping around in that and enjoying that and getting his sea legs under him. So at that second pond, he didn't do very well. It was starting to get a little cold. I pulled another 18 or 17 or something like that out of there, whatever. Had a good time. Again, they were biting the jig. I only got 2 fish out of that pond, and then we called it a night. It was a school night, and being the excellent parent I am, got him home by 10:30.
Not bad.
But he usually crashes by 10. He's the responsible one in the family. He's the early to bed, early to rise member of the household. So that was Monday. We fished Wednesday. Thursday, I left for Lake George. We had myself and Nelson left at, I think it was late morning, and we had planned. Nelson was going straight to fishing. He had a tournament up there. Also, Nate Shagnon was staying with us. He had a tournament up there. They were doing their thing. That left me to hang out with the mellow ships, which was, to say it was a blast is an understatement.
Yeah.
and things quickly escalated.
Next time one of these things happen, I would love to be a part of this because I feel like I'm missing out.
This you did.
Yeah.
You absolutely did. This was insane. We got up to an Airbnb. Christina had picked out for us. It was phenomenal. Right on the water.
Beautiful.
First thing we noticed, boathouse with a roof and a water slide, old school metal one. Water slide going into the water with a pump attached to it to get water going down it, right? Christina immediately declares,
right.
I will be going down that water slide before the end of the weekend. And we kind of say, awesome, ha, 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 laugh it off, don't really take her seriously, right? At least I did. And I was like, okay, it's fucking cold. Like, you're saying that? I would not say it. I'm not going to do it, but you want to do it. I ain't the boss of you. And Friday, Chris and I went out just in front of we were on a bay and we went out and checked it out. Now the tournament was going on in that lake. I really had no plans on fishing that lake very much because I didn't want to be out on the water with the tournament going on. We went out and checked it out. Went into one of the back bays, a few pickerel or pike. I don't even know what they were. Wax on a chatterbait. I caught a couple of bass. Chris caught a few bass as well. We spent most of our time drop shotting or outside of the weeds or dicking around in the weeds with whatever we were throwing. Nothing spectacular, nothing of note. The next day, I think we went to a tackle shop, picked up a few things, got the lay of the land. And then Chris and I kind of developed a plan for Saturday where we were going to say, fuck this lake. And honestly, I mean it, fuck Lake George. I'm good with that place. I'll never go back there. We went to the southern end of Champlain looking for bowfin. It's very, very muddy down there, very swampy, shallow. So Friday night, again, we fished good old Lake George and got little to nothing out of it. Nibbler bass. I think I caught a ton of nibbler, smallmouth, and bluegills and drop shotting. All the fish there from the reports that we had heard on the water from the tournament guys were that everything was deep. And when I say deep, I'm talking 30 to 50 feet on the bottom.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous. I'm good with that. So we fished Friday night. Didn't really get much out of it. Saturday, Chris and I went over to Champlain. Took the boats, had a good time. Chris stayed in the weeds most of the time, had a good day with a hollow body frog in 55-degree water. So everyone think about that. That was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
For him. I ended up picking up a few fish deeper off either a chatterbait or a drop shot, but just nothing. I wasn't doing much. So another day that I felt, well, this is just a blast of a trip. The fishing for me is subpar. That night, or when we got home that afternoon, Christina had a fire going out in the backyard.
Nice.
She said she'd been doing some jiggling all afternoon, and we were all laughing and good time. So Chris and I went out on the lake after lunch for a couple hours. He kind of called it quits. I guess he took a wave over the side of the boat. And again, these boats don't have scuppers, so he didn't really know how to attack. And of course, guess where the pump was? My boat. So he called it an afternoon. I stayed out, and the last half hour was actually pretty good of a bite. I got a decent smallmouth finally, and I upgraded a yellow perch.
Yep.
So that was nice. And just kind of smiled and said, that's that. Now, here's where the party started. Nate and Nelson had gotten back, and obviously jigglers were abound. And after dinner, we spent an hour or two outside with the campfire listening to the Jerky Boys for 2 hours.
As you do.
And at some point, Christina just got up and said, it's time, and just turned on the fucking pump to the ladder, climbed up there and just slid down. 50 to 55 degree water. She said, yeah, it was cold when I hit. And then we all had to kind of clear out while Chris went and got our towel, because at some point during the transition from the slide to the ladder, her pants ended up at the bottom of the lake. So Chris had to go get her a towel. Everybody's laughing. I had to go fish the pants out because, Chris had been jiggling as well. And I found out the quantity of jiggling the next morning. It said, that explains why you were unable to fish pants out of water, 3 feet of water. So I got those out, and we called it a night. It was definitely a frat party vibe.
Oh, that is the best. Yeah, I missed out. Fuck.
Yeah. Sunday morning, I made breakfast. Nelson and Nate again had gone to the tournament. It was a 2-day thing. Nate actually called it quits as he got to the water because of the wind, and Nelson went out there and did pretty well. Acquitted himself very nicely, both for the year and for the tournament itself.
Nice.
I made breakfast, hung out with the Mellow Ships for a while, and I took off late morning. Had a decent drive home. And when I got home, I had some work to do around the house, and I called Nelson. I said, what happened? And he explained to me the day on the water, this, that, and the other thing. And then he said, so did you talk to Chris and Christina? And I said, no. Oh. About what? And he said, what they did today. And I go, what did they do today? He goes, they went to the tattoo parlor. I said, oh no. He goes, yeah, you're going to want to talk to him. I got in touch with them. Nelson was laughing. Obviously, this was not a ominous thing. When I got in touch with them, I said, what did you guys do today? And Christina answered, we went to the tattoo parlor to get a commemorative tattoo. I said, what was that about? She goes, well, you and Nelson were the inspiration. I said, oh, Jesus, what have I done? And she responded, well, every time we're fishing with you guys or out on a trip, and this counts, I think the Cayuga trip in the spring, there was another fishing trip I'm missing out on, but the Cayuga trip in the spring and this one, every time they go out with us, they eat some sort of meal comprised of ground beaver and jigglers are all over the place. So we're having a good time. They got tattoos of a beaver that is obviously under the influence sitting on a log. Bobby is showing it to our jig heads right now, and Joe just saw it and he's laughing, which when I saw it, I laughed as well. It's phenomenal.
Amazing.
What a fantastic weekend. I cannot, like I said, I didn't catch shit. I had so much fun. And luckily, I mean, for the crappiness that Lake George offered, I didn't have a good time there fishing wise, but it is only a couple hours away from us. And this was fantastic. So thank you to Chris and Christina from Bay Lures. This was a phenomenal weekend. Congratulations on your tattoo work. I don't know. I don't have the words. This was phenomenal. And just for a side note, the beaver dish this weekend was, we laid down a bed of late July jalapeno chips, and I fried up the ground beaver, put it on top of that. Then we put like 2 layers of cheese, cooked that, brought it out, sour cream, salsa, kept it simple. My God, was it good. So we did it up. We had a lot of burgers and dogs this weekend, but that Saturday night was a highlight with the beaver nachos.
Fucking A, man.
Beaver fucking nachos. We did it. The only other thing I have to add is just an update on the tournament before we get into Joe's big tournament.
Yep.
Not like we're a small tournament, but we're in the middle of it. Joe's got a recap. The Jigs and Bigs tournament for the scavenger hunt for this month. I'm going to go through the top 10. I will describe in detail a tiebreaker that is in the top 3 because that one's in the money. I'm not going to worry about any other tiebreakers, folks. Number 10, Nathan Grant, 4 points. Number 9, Robbie Moonier, 4 points. Number 8, Nelson, 5 points. Number 7, Steve Galloway, 5 points. Number 6, Dave Barabani, 5 points. Number 5, by himself, 6 points. Bobby Roast Beef.
Fucking A.
Number 4, and this is where the tiebreaker kicks in with 7 points, Tim Behan. Number 3, 7 points, me, because I've got length on Tim. In the tournament, folks. Get your minds out of the gutter. And then second place, John Hagens by himself with 9 points. And then first place, why do we make this
I'm not
surprise?
shocked. Yeah.
Jerry Multihouse, 11 points.
Fucking
first
A,
place. Yep.
Goals.
So we are halfway through the scavenger hunt. 2 weeks to go, folks. A lot of room. Nobody's broken 15 points yet. I think there's a lot of room for improvement for everyone. Get out there, fish your asses off. I'm going to do my best about it. I think I got 2 outings this week if I'm lucky. And I'm going to try. I'm going to go ahead. I have 1 fish species that's swimming around in my pond in my backyard that I have not picked up. I'm going to try and pull a crappie out of my pond this week. We're going to see how that happens. But that's all. I had a pretty exciting week. Again, I cannot thank Nelson, Nate, Chris, and Christina enough. This weekend was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Fucking phenomenal. Just a lot of smoking, a lot of fishing, a lot of eating. And you really can't go wrong with those.
It's the best combo.
Things.
It's the best combo.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. So thank you guys.
So let's dive into road trip mode right here. We're putting real miles on it.
Let's do it.
All right.
So let's talk Hartwell. Let's talk. We talked about it a little bit the last episode. I was there for, that was like day 1, wasn't it? The last episode, I just gotten 1 day of pre-fishing in.
That's right.
Yep. So let's start day 2 of pre-fishing. So my goal going down there was essentially to go for the largemouth. I know there's a ton of big largemouth in there. That was my original goal. I burned so much gas in the boat going up the Tougaloo River, Seneca Rivers, going up the 620 River. I mean, I was fishing up at Clemson University, like just trying to find it. And I was only finding rats. I wasn't finding anything big. And after that day 2, a little bit of day 1, day 2, I was able to talk to some locals at the boat ramp and telling them like, yeah, I came to fish for those largemouth, and they're like, lake's turning over. Like the lake's turning over, like good luck type deal. He's like, the spots are going to be where it's at, especially if he asked me, he's like, you're part ABA, right? You're here for the ABA tournament. I'm like, yeah. He goes, spots are where it's going to be at. There. So I was like, after day 2 of pre-fishing, I totally changed my tactic. And I was like, all right, going for the spots. So I decided I wasn't going to do any long runs anymore. And I was going to, all the runs are long in comparison to anything you do here. Yeah. I mean, that's a 56,000 acre lake. It's absolutely gigantic.
Yep.
Every spot I went to was probably, I think the closest spot I went to was maybe 15, 20 minutes away from the launch. And that's doing, 65, 70 miles an hour.
Yep.
So it's a clip away. So I started to fish for the spots. So obviously I had to last minute do a ton of research. I was on my computer with, just reading and YouTube and, cause we don't have spotted bass here. So basically what I got from it, it's a lot like just fishing for big smallmouth. Very similar. The fishing styles are very similar. So I was like, okay. I can do that. So that third day of pre-fishing, I started throwing a shaky head like an animal. Shaky head, that's just a little bit of drop shotting, but I was finding a lot of schooled spotted, like a lot of the school spots are chasing the blueback herring and the shad around. But they were small. They're just not big. They're not big spots. I'm talking 12 to 14 inch fish, and I'm like, well, this ain't going to do it for me.
Yeah.
And, I caught a couple decent ones. Let me back up a little bit. I did hook into one largemouth that I think I got very lucky on because it was in a brush pile. There's brush piles everywhere.
Yep.
It was the only one that I found a largemouth in, and maybe I'm exaggerating, but I'm pretty sure it would have been my PB. I think this was probably a 6-pound fish, and it broke me off near the boat on a shaky head. I got him right out of the bush. He just unfortunately broke me off. But it was kind of like at the time I thought maybe it was a blessing in disguise because I was pre-fishing. Yeah. So he got off. So I was like, so my intent was to go hit that spot again during the tournament. So day 1 of the tournament, the night before we had our pre-tournament brief and all that. It was just like this big banquet, and they text you your boat number and whether you have a non-boater or not.
Yeah.
So there's only 12. There's 250 boats plus 12 non-boaters. So, chances were I wasn't going to get a non-boater.
Oh yeah.
Sure as shit. I get that text. I'm boat number 202 out of, 250, and I have a non-boater.
Oh, Jesus.
So I'm like, fuck. So I got the non-boater. Thank God he was like the nicest guy on the planet.
Yep.
He had been there a couple times. We kind of, but the difference between like Bassmaster non-boaters and ABA is you're competing against the non-boater. They don't have their own division or anything. So we're on my boat competing against each other. It was just like, it was a wacky concept to me, but we got it done. Nicest guy on the planet. We both got on the fish. basically what I was doing is we were running swim baits around bait. We were running, like Kitex and Spark, I was running Megabass Spark Shads, and we were getting bites, but again, it was just kind of those smaller fish.
Yep.
So what I started doing is running a shaky head in about, all these shoreline. One thing people need to understand about Hartwell is there's no vegetation at all. There's no vegetation.
Mainly hard bottom.
Yep. All you have is rocks. You have submerged trees and bushes, but there's no grass. There's no, coontail. There's no lily pads, nothing like that. So it's basically, if you find some structure, you need to work the hell out of that structure because, that's probably where they're going to be. So I started working those ledges. I mean, the ledges are very hard drop offs, those rock ledges. And I just started throwing the shaky head in there. I started to pick up fish, all spots, all spotted bass. I ended up getting a couple that are around 2.5. And then a couple more that were more rats. Just running shorelines, just running, sitting in about 30 feet of water. That first day I was running the shaky heads, started about 10 feet and come down to that 30 feet.
Yep.
And we were picking up fish, both of us. He was running, my partner was running more Carolina rig. All the power to him. I'm not a Carolina rig guy.
Yeah.
I was catching him off the shaky head, something I'm much, much more comfortable with. And I ended up with shit. I mean, it wasn't much. It was like 8 pounds that first day.
Yep.
But everyone was struggling. Everyone was struggling with the big fish. The biggest bag that day was, I want to say 16. So it wasn't a monster bag by any means. And by the end of day one, I was sitting at, I believe it was 108th place I was sitting at after day one.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. I was like, all right. So I can work with this. Cause again, my goal was to be in the top 100. So day 2 comes around. I get my boat number. I am boat number 104 and I don't have a non-boater. So I was like, perfect. So I'll feel more comfortable being able to do my own thing and whatever. Yeah. Downside was the weather was absolute hot garbage. Oh. It was raining. It was windy. In the way, I mean, we're talking like 2-3 foot rollers on the lake. Yeah. So I headed south again to the same vicinity of where I was fishing that first day, but not the same spot, just a very identical area. I was struggling to get a bite. I was just, the wind was rolling so hard and I was just having a tough time, even with the spot lock, the boat was just getting thrown everywhere. I mean, it was tough. I only ended up getting 3 fish that day. Same thing, shaky head. 90% of the time I did throw the drop shot a couple times just to try something different. Again, I was just getting rats, stuff I couldn't even throw in the box. I did get a 2-pounder, and then actually I got 2 2-pounders and I think like a 1.5. I only got 3 fish that day. And the unfortunate part was the first fish I got, or the biggest fish I got that day, which was, that like 2.5. Yep. He swallowed the shaky head.
Oh, fuck.
And I was like, I'm not going to fuck with this. I'm just going to let him, I'm not going to try. I just knew pulling it out was just going to, trying to pull it out was going to be a massacre. Yep. So I cut it and just hoped for the best.
Yep.
He unfortunately did not make it.
Fucker.
So I was a half-pound penalty for that. So that sucked. I needed that. I only weighed in about 6 pounds day 2. And, I dropped from, was it 108 to 148, 148th place. Yep. So now I'm a little, I'm frustrated. I'm like, so I kept just blaming the wind or whatever. I was just like, I just should have figured out something different.
Yeah.
So when day 3 comes, in the process of this, so me and Josh Codier every night, we went and got drink dinner, just chatted about the day or whatever. He still was making the runs for the largemouth.
Yep.
And he found some. But I mean, he was burning 40 gallons of gas each day.
Oh, yeah, I believe it.
$200 days, to find these. And it just, I figured I could do just as well with, or close to just as well going for the spotted bass. Where it was something I was more comfortable with because it was a lot like just fishing for smallmouth here. So at the end of the day, too, him and I are talking. I'm like, dude, I'm just going to go out there and have fun and fish. Like, that's it. Like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to have a blast. Like, going to do my thing. So day 3 comes along. Weather's better. Again, I was I was boat number 65. So I was a much better boat number. No non-boater. I got out there and I just fished. And I ended up, I got a couple, pound and a half fish, 3 or 4 of them, like in the first hour and a half. And then I was in about 35 feet of water, and I kept seeing some kind of mark on my live scope.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to throw it to that. I throw the shaky head. I'm only using 1/4 ounce shaky head. So it took a fucking 2 years for that thing to fall to 30 feet and nothing. So like I saw a little bit of a follow, but nothing. So I'm like, let me try something here. So I throw in
Mag Draft.
No.
I'm just
so these, yeah. So I grabbed a 3 ounce weight. No, so I ended up grabbing a Beast Coast jig. I grabbed a Beast Coast jig, 1/2 ounce, and I just dragged it with a Beast Coast cray craw.
Mm-hmm.
Dragged it along there. Next thing you know, I'm hooked up. It's a 3.5 pound spot.
Nice.
Yeah. So
nice, dude.
I was like, okay, I think I figured something out here. So I ended up doing that. I just kept in like 25, 30 feet of water. And yeah, I ended up catching a 3.5, and then a couple 1.5, 2s. I ended up getting about 10 pounds at the end of the day. That shot me up to the 79th place. Nice. So my goal was top 100. I ended up getting 79th, not in the money or anything, but I was extremely happy about that. Yeah. But what a hell of an experience that was. Just that many boats, that big of an event. I mean, just going up on stage with an audience to weigh in with an announcer and stuff. It was wild. It was really cool.
That's like, what was it? 250 or 260 boats?
So 250 boats, 261 anglers.
Yeah. So out of that, man, you did better than over half of them.
Yeah. Yep.
Like that's
for
awesome.
Being there my first time.
Yeah.
We were the group of Massachusetts guys came from the farthest north.
There
was it was just wild, dude. Such a wild experience. It was, the national anthem blaring with the fire truck with the 30-foot flag every morning. We were going in 80 boat flights, a half hour apart. Yep. It was just crazy. And then, one cool thing I liked, and Shawn will appreciate this one. So at the end, when you weigh in, okay, so let me give you the process. So you have a bunch of tanks as you're waiting to weigh in that you're with fucking 30 aerator in it. You put the aerator in your bag, you put the bag in the water. And as you move up, you keep moving up to the next one. You dump the water real quick for about the weigh-in's very quick for about 15, 20 seconds. You have them in the bag, you weigh. You have more bins of water from the lake. Right as you get off the stage, you fill that bag back up with the fish. You give them oxygen for a second. You walk them down to the docks, and every other tournament, you just dump them right there, right? So no, they had 3 highly modified, huge pontoon boats that were a giant aerated tanks. So they take them, they put the fish in those giant aerated tanks, and actually go to different locations around the lake to release those fish.
Yeah.
Drop points. Yeah.
Yep,
Some of the local organizations will do that too. They'll say, if you're coming back in, you've got your fish, you've got to bring them out to X, Y, or Z. Yep. I've heard of that before.
So that was really cool to see.
Yep.
I really enjoyed that. And one cool thing, I actually got the email today that I really thought was neat is my 79th place at the national championship put me at my national standings in the country for my final standings. I am 96th in the country. So I made top 100.
Shit.
Yeah. So I made top 100 in the country as well. Yep.
Good job, Joe.
Fucking A, Joe.
So that opens me up to different divisions. That opens me up to different tournaments. So I'm pumped about that. So now I'm already looking at where I'm going to fish for next year. So which tournaments? They actually have a pro series this year.
Yep.
That I qualified with that. So we'll see. I'm pumped. Bigger money, bigger. You have to put in more money.
Yeah, it's bigger all the way around.
More money. So yeah, we'll see. It was such an awesome experience. The ride there and back sucked.
Yeah.
Fucking dick.
That's the worst part.
especially pulling a boat. I mean, the ride down there, I stopped and I slept because I got up, 4:30 for work. I worked a half a day and then I left. I drove to like 9, slept and finished the ride. The ride back, I went straight through 16 hours, just straight rip. Yep. Took 81. So I stayed out of Washington, DC and New York City.
Yeah.
So
That's the way to do it.
Hitting the mountains and whatnot. And, I got home the other night about 2 a.m. So straight to bed.
Fucking A. Hell yeah.
Straight to bed. I didn't even back up the boat all the way. I just left it halfway in the driveway. I didn't even back it all the way down. I'm just like, this is good. And I go to bed. But couple things. The boat did take was a little crippled. My onboard charging system for my batteries blew while I was down there.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up having to go to Walmart and buy essentially high trickle chargers basically for each battery. I'm running. So I stayed at a hotel. So I got my boat parked as close to a hotel as possible. I'm running there's fucking extension cords just in the hallways, in front of people's rooms, that I'm running. I can't believe they didn't unplug them. The hotel staff, they're just a tripping hazard. Or I'm surprised I didn't burn this place down. But so I'm running so that's how I had to charge every day. So or after day 2 or 3, that's how I had to charge every day, and it sucked. So I got a call down to where I purchased the boat to have them fix that. I almost died in the boat. I have a little video of it. I'll have to show you guys. My mistake, totally my fault. It was that day 2, with the waves, doing about 60, 65. My hull just caught the wind and I was like this.
Yeah.
Yep. I came up like this. Then the prop caught again, slammed me down, and then I'm doing 60 miles an hour doing this, and I almost lost it. I almost did a 360, but luckily I was able to keep it. Humbled me real fucking fast. I didn't go that quick the rest of the day.
Oh hell yeah!
It jolted my back a little bit. My back was actually sore after that.
That bad? Wow, that's rough.
Yeah, it was gnarly. I'll have to. The video doesn't really give it justice just because of the angle, but you'll see what I'm talking about when I send it to you guys. But
it's bananas.
Yeah. So other than that, Josh did well. Josh finished, I think, 52nd overall.
Nice.
Was he? Oh no, he might have been. I think Josh was in the 40s. He just missed the money. He had some boat issue, his boat was good. He had some trailer issues. He actually broke his axle, cracked his axle.
Oh no shit. That sucks.
And blew his hub. So he was able to to lip it home somehow.
That's good.
Yeah, but him and I had a blast. I mean, we drank pretty much every night and had dinner together and just talking strategies, whatever. He was a huge help for me, especially because he had been there quite a few times with Bassmaster
he's got
and
more
everything.
Experience, yeah.
Yep. And so he was giving me hints and pointers, and it helped a lot. That last day, he wished he had come and fished the spots with me with the jig, because I actually did better than him that last day.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a blast, man. What an awesome experience. I can't wait to do it again for next season. Our early bird tournament is actually at Quabog for our local division in a couple weeks, but got to make sure the boat's good before I can commit to that one.
Don't want to fool around with that.
Yeah, so that if I do go, that obviously would probably be the last one of the season. But yeah, I still got to clean out the boat. It's a fucking mess. My truck's a mess. There's tackle, fucking everything everywhere. Broke a rod, broke a reel. Like it was.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
So my BFS reel, my Corrado BFS reel. Listen to this. So I think I don't think it's broken. I just gotta. I'm using that. I was using that with my swim baits with my small like Kitex. And I'm reeling it in, and the handle just falls right off. Spring pops out. But thank God it didn't go in the water.
What brand was it?
It was a Lose.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Oh, so yeah, that's I mean, I have all my Shimano's, that is the first time that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fucking shitty.
Luckily they all fell onto the boat, so I have the parts. I just gotta fucking put it back together. Try to dick with it. But yeah, did break a rod, broke that reel. I mean, it was a pricey tournament, but it was worth it. That's
what I'm saying. I mean, and it's half of it. I think, especially when you're going into it, where it's your first national championship and you're doing this, is just to say like, okay, let's get like kind of what Shawn says. Let's get a starting point. Yep. Let's get a line that's measured. Now, what happens from here? Because now you've got a baseline to fuck around with. Yep.
Yeah, it was. I did witness my first gar.
Oh yeah, I heard about this. Yeah,
fucking thing comes. I mean, I'd seen gar when I lived in Florida, but not this size. The thing, I mean, it just came right up next to the boat, just like kind of stuck its nose out and then went back in. It was wild seeing them on the live scope on the forward facing, because that fish that big, you can actually see their entire outline. You can actually tell what kind of fish they are and everything. You can see them actually swimming. It's wild. And then same thing, I saw a couple flatheads that way. Josh actually caught like an 18-pound flathead on a shaky head.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, during pre-fish. But
wild.
The lake's wicked low right now, probably like 8 to 10 feet. Yeah. And it's actually crazy. You can it's down so low that on the bank, on those vertical banks, you can actually see the flathead catfish holes where they go into on the bank, where people like noodle from and shit. Yeah, you could. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, that was a very humbling experience. Hitting a lake that big was absolutely insane. The people down there were super nice, very receptive. Shout out to Fairfield Inn and Suites. They were for not unplugging the 6 fucking extension cords I had running all across the hotel. And yeah, it was a great experience, and I can't wait to do it again next year.
Dude, that is so awesome, man. Good for you. Awesome. Unbelievable. You know what, gentlemen? Before we take a break and move on, I think we should kind of go over. We have a couple of things that involve Dark Horse Tackle this episode that you guys need to know about. First and foremost, there is a sale right now going on Dark Horse Tackle. And that sale is effective. Let me get all the details. I'm sure that Zach is still in here. It is a 10% off sale at darkhorsetackle.com. And from what I understand, that yes, you can bundle it with your other codes and such, but it's off your entire purchase, individual baits. So if you wanted to purchase baits, you can go ahead and purchase them at darkhorsetackle.com and get that savings with their sale pricing that they've got going on right now. The other thing is we just got an amazing box that we're about to unbox for you guys. And I'm super excited because this box, it features one of the baits or one of the baits in this box, I should say, is a bait that had, Well, it had been talked about on last week's episode with Jonathan Kelly, who collaborated with Martin's Custom Baits, and it's the Knee Knocker. So we'll go over all of that. But I want to let you guys know in segment 2, in place of the FTG segment, we're probably still going to use that open because it's awesome. But we do have one of these calls is an FTG. That's why we're placing it in there. We have 5 folks that we're going to be entering in for a giveaway for a Weekend Warrior box from Dark Horse Tackle. So we have 5 entries that came in. We actually had way more calls that came in, but folks didn't leave a voicemail. So I've got to use the voicemail so we can play them on the show and then, know the names of whomever and everything else. I'm not going to just call out phone numbers on the show. That is
psycho.
So let's go ahead. We'll unbox this sucker. Shawn, did you get yours yet?
I did. It's I took a look at it. So I've been kind of taking a different approach on the on the Dark Horse Tackle boxes. I feel, if you guys don't mind me preaching a little bit or getting up on my soapbox, I feel that boxes like this are custom made for people that are learning the sport.
Yep.
Like they don't have 30 years of experience. Guys like me who I am so locked in on what I use that I go through a box like this and I might cherry pick 1 or 2 things like I did with that Dockmaster prop. So what I've been doing in my house is they're my sons.
Yeah.
They go right to him. He is learning and he is now filling a tackle box with all this stuff.
That's perfect.
And he's getting out as much as he can.
Yep.
So I did take a peek at it last night. I saw a couple things, particularly the jig and the, we'll get into this, but the jig and the trailer that come with it were matched up pretty good. And I told him, I said, you're going to want to try this at both our pond and another place. And I'm sure, after soccer today, he'll probably be out on the dock whipping it around. But I mean, it's a little different. So I'm standing by. I want to hear what you guys have to say about what came in this month.
So I'm going to start off with this first bait that comes in. I took this one out of the package, but this is the Knee Knocker, the packaging for the Martin's Knee Knocker right here. And I was actually setting up. I went out on Friday evening and fished with my buddy Paul. My plan was initially we were going to take the kayaks out, try and get him out for one more send before the season kind of wraps up as far as the kayaks go. And it ended up, he had such a short amount of time, he wasn't going to be able to go and grab his kayak. So we did a little bit of a bank send. Really, we ended up at a bar having drinks and wings is what ended up happening. Like we fished for about a half hour, no bites. And we're just like, let's just go grab beers and we'll talk about your marriage. And that's pretty much how it went with Paul. But this is the Knee Knocker right here. And we had gone over all of the information with Jonathan about his choice in blades for this. It's got a sizable willow blade. This is really fantastic. And I like to throw a little bit lighter of a spinnerbait in the fall. And this is an ideal kind of size right here. This is a 3/8 jig. Or a 3/8 spinnerbait right here. The color is called Bream, and it's great. I don't know how well you guys can see this color, but there is certainly some green pumpkin, but there's some blue flash, like even in the head. Like even up in the head, it carries over there. So I really, really like this color. I do like the brass blades. I think that's pretty sweet. The size of this willow blade is awesome. So even though it's a willow blade, like it's gonna have a little bit more thump. It's huge. So I'm excited to throw this. I'm probably going to be throwing this really anytime I encounter any wind whatsoever. This time of year where fish are generally feeding up on bait fish. That's a great, great way to get bit because it's like, think about it. The reason why I like a spinnerbait is think about it like this. It's a presentation that appears as if it's multiple fish. It appears as if it's a small school. So that's that. I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about this jig because I think this jig is beautiful. So this is from HH Custom Baits, both of these elements right here. This is, what's the name of this jig? It's got a name. It's called the Koosh Ball Micro Jig. It's a 3/16 ounce jig, and I'm going to take it out of the packaging here. I can't wait to throw this. I mean, when I say Koosh Ball, yeah, micro jig is right. This is a super light jig, but look at that thin wire hook. Let's pull some of that skirt back. Not sure if you guys can see it. I'll use my face as the backdrop. Super fine wire hook right there. Really, really subtle weed guard. Or is there a weed guard? There is no weed guard. Oh, no, there is. There's a little single wire weed guard right here. I should say that this box is in collaboration with the Catch Podcast, and they put this box together as a river box. They're like, that's their focus right here. This is a river box. I'm going to throw one of these trailers on here because they did, like you said, Shawn, they matched them up great. So these are HH custom baits right here. This is called the Koosh Craw, and it's designed specifically. I love the fact that it's got kind of a little bit more of like a chunk body, but this PB&J color is just delicious. Difference on the back. It's got a little bit more brown on the back. It's got a little bit of flake in there, couple of appendages. But I mean, this is a jig that I'm going to throw a lot in really anywhere where I kind of would throw a Ned rig, but maybe want to bulk it up a little bit to give it just a little bit more stank, if you will. You know, just get it and show, again, like in some ways, it's that show them something different sort of mentality. And this is a good multi-species bait too. You know, those appendages, that skirt material undulating under the water is just absolutely killer. Boom. Hold it by the hook so you guys can get a good look at it. Absolutely beautiful. Nice little ball head formation. And this finesse cut on the skirt. That little buzz cut just drives fish bananas. And that is a real subtle weed guard. Really, really, really subtle. Beautiful jig. Beautiful, beautiful jig. Next up, let's pop these in here. These are bitters. More bites for the buck. These are a fluke style bait right here. They call it a skip shad. The color that I got is called Ghost Shiner. And I'll tell you right now why I am kind of all about this bait is that this bait will pair perfectly with the reaction tackle scrounger jigs that I'm testing out. We'll be talking about those. I got to talk with the group over at Reaction Tackle a little bit. This is probably a color that's most similar. It's got a little bit of blue flake. I don't know if it really gets picked up in there. But anytime you have like some sun, like that blue flake, I feel like for my experience, it kind of makes the plastic seem a little bit more lifelike. Because some of these bait fish colors are just insane. And like you've seen some of the pictures of some of the panfish that I've caught, and the colors can vary so greatly, but having like something that looks complex, I take as a little bit of a vote of confidence. So we got the knee knocker, we got the jig, we got two more to go. This is from Fresh Baits. Fresh Baits. Fresh Baits. This right here is the Beetle. Now, I've had the Beetle for a couple of years. I've got I think it's in their perch color that I've got one, which is like a two-tone, but this is just straight green pumpkin. And this is what I was hoping I was going to get, was this straight up green pumpkin Beetle. And why do I like the Beetle? I like to actually throw this on a buzzbait because it lays so perfectly flat, and these appendages just catch enough of a bit of water, but they're nice and wide. They really put a little bit of disruption on there. So whether you're throwing it on like a micro buzz from Jigmaster, something that's a little bit more complex, if you're like, a lot of the times when I'm fishing a buzz bait, I will oftentimes try to skip them underneath heavy cover and pull them right back out real quick to try to, really just get fish to show themselves, if nothing else. And having that flat bottom helps a lot as far as getting that skip to go over, because trust me, the blade will fuck you up. So you need all the help you can get when you're trying to skip this. And I'm not a skipping expert, so there's a lot of swearing that happens when I'm fishing this method, but it works. It works. I can see fish will reveal themselves quite often. And this time of year, a buzzbait is great, especially for covering water if they're all over the place. And I think this is an awesome one. But again, there are a bunch of different ways that you can use this. You could throw this Beetle on a shaky head, and it'd be absolutely amazing. Throw it as a jig trailer if you really want to bulk up a jig a lot. That wider body shape is going to be something that they're not going to see. In the fall may even slow down significantly, it might glide a little bit more because it's got more of a wing. And the last one to go on, I think this is the hard bait that's in here. It's from Stoneman and Sons Lure Company. Stoneman and Sons, I went and I looked at their website because I was trying to get a couple of breakdowns of their colors. This was actually a color that I was hoping I was going to get. So I don't have very many cranks in a black and blue type pattern. Look at the bill on this sucker. She run deep. It's a funny shaped bill too. I don't know if you guys can see that. Like it's a little bit more of a scoop.
Spoon.
Yeah, it really is. It narrows down here, right up by the nose. I'm interested to see how this works. These hooks that are on here are also, they feature Vector hooks, which is Vector has worked with Dark Horse in the past as well. So I'm interested to try this sucker out. You guys can hear the rattles in there, but it's a great color. Has almost like a purple back. Oh, that's beautiful. Hello. That's a nice looking bait. What'd you get for your baits as far as colors, Joe?
Let me see here.
We should do this every single month. Just go through the box.
So I think we got the same color for
Yep. For the beetle.
for the fresh baits, yeah. For the knee knocker, I got white, which I'm all right with.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't go wrong.
No. And for the jig, I gotta find the jig. I don't know what I did with the jig, to be honest. Oh, here it is.
I do love those micro jigs, the super tiny finesse jigs. Oh, dude. Oh,
yes.
dude, that's a great color.
So I got that, and for the trailer there, Candy Craw.
Oh, that's a great color too, man.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. A little bit of copper fleck in there.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
And, what else? There's one more thing. Oh, for the shad, or I'm sorry, for the fluke or the skip shad, I got Ghost Shiner on there.
Yep, that's the same color I've got. Yep. Nice.
So-
And they will. I think they'll pair up. Actually, if you guys are interested in testing out those scroungers, I have two of them in two different weights. I think a 3/8 and a half.
Okay.
So if you guys want me to get you some scroungers, I'll get you some scroungers. We'll fuck around with those.
Cool.
We don't all have to necessarily throw them. I know, just to try them out and see what the deal is.
No.
But so here's what we're going to do, guys, regarding reviews. Our path moving forward as far as like reviewing specific baits, we're going to be doing this specifically with Reaction Tackle on more of a monthly basis, but we're going to be doing them in two phases. We're going to do an initial reaction type, we'll try out the baits and see what we think initially. And then we're going to come back to it like at least 6 months later and find out where we are with them. And then, obviously if there's an uptick where, okay, maybe, just the time of the year that we were throwing them was not the right time of the year or something like that, we'll go back to it if anything changes. So these are kind of going to be like living reviews. We'll talk about what we think about it, make some because we want this to be constructive as well and offer up constructive, usable information for you guys, the listener, but also, Reaction Tackle as well. So I do want to mention again that this Dark Horse Tackle Box was a collab with the Catch Podcast. You can check out the Catch Podcast on all the major podcast platforms, just like you can Jigs and Bigs. And Jigs and Bigs will have a collaboration box coming soon with Dark Horse Tackle. It'll be, we have a target of the time of year that we're looking at that we want to launch something. And we're in the process right now of kind of coming up with like a little bit of a wish list of ideas of baits that we want to include and reasons why. Also want to mention that the featured small business of this month is Slay Nation. Slay Nation Tournament Trail, small boat, kayak, canoe. Like if you are looking to get into competitive fishing and you're like, wow, I'm more of a tiny boat guy, Slay Nation might have a trail for you. Go check it out. SlayNation.com. Frankie Provolone, good guy. Love Frankie. That about does it for segment 1, dudes. I think this is the start of an amazing show. Next segment, we've got just the tip for you guys. We're going to choose a winner for our Dark Horse Tackle Weekend Warrior box from those voicemails that we had gotten in. We got a bunch that we're going to listen to. Some are suggestions. We have one call that doubles as an FTG, so that's why we're putting it all in the FTG spot. And then in Gear of the Week, we have, well, we're gonna talk equipment, not really equipment directly. We're actually going to talk about a spot, a very specific spot in the country to gear up if you're fishing a particular body of water that maybe one of us has fished in this country. And then in our third segment, we've got Fletcher from All Things Overland. You guys are not going to want to miss that. It's a great conversation. We will see you guys with much more good Jigs and Bigs goodness right after this. Hey, you. Yeah, you. The one with the impeccable taste in fishing podcasts. Bobby Roast Beef here with a little call to action for all Jigs and Bigs listeners. We're opening up our hotline to you. Now you can call us to sound off about almost anything at 413-324-8519. Want to submit someone for our FTG segment? Call us at 413-324-8519. Care to maybe suggest a topic for Just the Tip or Bait of the Week? Call us at 413-324-8519. Maybe you just want to give us or anyone else a little shout out on the show, or you want to suggest a guest for the beef seat. You guessed it. Call us at 413-324-8519. The Jigs and Bigs hotline is there for you to leave a message with us 24/7. Just call 413-324-8519. Also, you can check that number in the notes of this podcast. Jigs and Bigs wants to take a moment to say thank you to our partners for helping us continue to push the limits of our fishing adventures and bring you amazing long-form content. We're excited to offer Jigs and Bigs listeners a 15% off savings on your first installment of a month-to-month subscription to Dark Horse Tackle just by using the code JIGSandBigs15. Dark Horse Tackle provides a monthly supply of small batch, craft, and custom lures, allowing anglers to try some otherwise tough-to-discover baits. This is the stuff you're not going to find just anywhere. And Dark Horse Tackle does the hard part for you. They track down these small companies and then test the baits to determine if it's a good enough fit for the Dark Horse Tackle community. You can also build your own box with Dark Horse Tackle. Select your own baits in a BYOB and try it before you subscribe, or just pick up some past baits that you may have missed out on from previous boxes. Jigs and Bigs listeners can save 25% on a BYOB using the code J&B BYOB25. Subscribe now and build your own box at darkhorsetackle.com. For all your premium kayak needs, we partner with Three Bells Outfitters. Located along Smith Cove in Niantic, Connecticut, Three Bells is your go-to location for kayaks and accessories by Hobie, Native, Bonafide, Jackson, Yakutak, Naqua, Boondocks, Burley Pro, and many more. Financing options are available to upgrade your kayak fishing experience. White glove delivery also available. Visit ThreeBellsOutfitters.com for more information, and do not forget to tell them that Jigs and Bigs sent you. Next, we need to thank Abe Lure. Abe Lure, a quality product at a quality price, painted by a fishing fanatic who just wants to see you catch fish. You can get your own custom painted lures with a 20% off savings using the code Jigs and Bigs at checkout. Visit abelure.com to order. But wait, there's more. Have you always wanted to fish the famed St. Lawrence River? Well, stay in Alexandria Bay at either the Bay House Apartment or the Ship Motel. Links for booking can be found in the description of this podcast. Reaction Tackle is the Jigs and Bigs approved source for tungsten, all types of fishing line, a variety of fishing storage and accessories, and a whole lot more. Reaction Tackle provides high value for your money. Click the affiliate link in the description of this podcast to check out their wide selection right now. Again, we cannot thank our partners enough for their support. Please consider supporting them and supporting the show in the same process. All links and codes are listed in the show notes of each podcast.
Bobby, Shawn, and Who the Fuck is Joe Brown now have a special presentation for us all. It's time for Just the Tip.
Alrighty, guys, let's talk. Just the tip. What do I have for you guys for a tip this week? Well, it kind of goes back to that trip that I took out on the Swift River. It is easy as anglers to get really frustrated with bodies of water, and I've heard this from quite literally every single person I've ever fished with. There are bodies of water that they're just like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm not going back there. I had a bad experience with it. But here's the thing. Dare yourself. Go out where you're challenged, and if you continue to put the work in, don't set the expectation as high that you're necessarily going to conquer it, because it might take a long ass time. I mean, you're talking, for me, I started fishing the Swift River when I was 12 years old, and I'm 46 right now, not 57, Joe. I'm 46. And I have carried that monkey on my back for a lot of years. And I'll tell you, it was fucking embarrassing to have that conversation with folks that so many people just slay it on that river. And for a long time, I was like, fuck it, I'm not going to go back. But the reality of it is, it's like the fishing year round there for open water fishing is generally all right. Like, yeah, I mean, does it get impossible in the winter at times? Yeah. But like last year, I was able to fish the Swift year round. And when you're not looking to ice fish, it's kind of a good solution. So it made me rethink my relationship with the Swift. However, this summer, when we kind of got into the big swing of things, when we had that episode, we had Tony on, and he had suggested, he's like, take your kayak and take it upriver and, just check it out. He's like, I'm telling you, you're going to have a much better. He even gave a bait recommendation, which is not too far off from what I was throwing. But I had gone and done it, and I wish I had actually done this sooner, where I could get out, before I had to drop the kids off and everything. I could leave at like dark and get there for that nice early bite before all the wreck kayaks get in there on a weekday. And that was an opportunity that was missed. And next year, that's not going to be missed. I'm going to cash in on that 100%. Swift River is it's one of these spots where I didn't know if it was feasible to bring my giant boat in there. And I only learned by doing it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Like, you have a fucking difficult time maneuvering your boat. Okay, well, then you pull it out of the water, and then you live and you learn. You take one of your smaller vessels with you next time. But this worked out for me so unbelievably well. So I think if there's anything else, if you're wrestling with a body of water, dare yourself. Go that next level and give it the full send that it really should be. Don't cut yourself off too early and potentially lose what could be another great resource to get out on the water, fish for new species, fish, just new water in general, even if it's the same old thing. I'm Bobby Roast Beef, and I approve this message. What do you guys think?
I think you're right. I think you should definitely revisit water a few times, but I think at some point you've got to consider time a resource. And if you're tracking what you're doing at a certain place and it's just you're hammering your head into a place over and over and over again, at some point you might want to say, well, what am I doing here? Like for me with fishing monthly tournaments, I'll give a place a couple of shots, but if it turns up nothing, we have enough different waters in our place. Yeah. I'll move on. You know what I mean?
No. I hear you.
For you, because that was your home body of water for so many years.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with going back after you've learned a few more things and checking it out. If you're not worried about the same kind of competitive bullshit that some of us are, you know what I mean?
And I think that comes into play too. Like you don't want to do this at the expense of a tournament situation, something that's competitive. I mean, shit, even the multi-species tournament that we're doing, like I'm not going to go there looking for a species that's not there. I know what's in there and what to expect and what not to. But yeah, exactly. Like you're not going to go to a body of water that doesn't have pike thinking you're going to catch them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about if I've gone someplace and I've heard great reports about it, regardless of the species. And I've gone there and whatever I'm doing is not picking up this. I'm not getting that level of success or the level I set for myself saying, I've got to go out and do this. I'll give it a few tries, but I also know that bodies of water ebb and flow sometimes. Maybe you hit it at a down point.
True.
So I might give it a couple more tries in the future, but at some point, Like I've kind of blacklisted certain places where I'm like, all right, either I'm not doing this place is not a fit for me or whatever, you know? I view it as a resource with time, especially with running around and doing this, that, and the other thing. Do I want to go to a place where I'm going to be productive or someplace I'm taking a chance on?
And I've seen you do that in the past too, though, where like, even like, look at like Congamon Jr., you know, and where we've done that and you're like, yeah, fuck that place. I'm done. And then, you know, we go and it's never great. It's just not ever great.
Honestly,
sometimes
I have a trip there scheduled next week.
Yeah.
Because again, time is a resource. That place is nearby my kid's school.
Yeah.
I don't have a choice. If I want to fish for 4 hours, I've got to go there. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm driving an hour plus.
There and back. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where that looking at the species that are in there, I'm looking at that going, okay, well, what do I need for this tournament? Where's the nearest place that have them? What is the most time efficient place? And unfortunately, fucking
Congamon Jr. is the one.
God, that place sucks. I fucking hate that place.
And that's a huge point too, is like you said, time being a resource. Like, it doesn't make sense to go and fish one body. Like, you got to be able to give it its due. You know, and some of that just makes the decision. Like we talked about it before at the multi-species scavenger hunt. This is set up in a place that for you to really get all of them, all of these species, all 20 plus species, you've got to travel, you know?
Yeah.
And not only do you have to travel, but now you've got to know how to fish for those species and kind of have an idea of what that body of water looks like. There's a real challenge there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What about you, Joe? You got any way in here?
I'm that kind of person that if a body of water frustrates me, or I used to be, if it frustrates me, I don't do well, I just won't go back. But, you know, kind of being, you know, in the different tournament series now, some of those bodies of water are on the schedule. So I got to kind of, you know, force myself to go back and at least try to figure something out, different techniques. And like Shawn said, you know, as I've learned different techniques, different tactics, I have done better at bodies of water I hadn't in the past. So that's kind of how I look at it.
I love it. I think that's the name of the game. So dare yourself, folks. Don't be afraid. And now I'm going to play this open just because it's Jigs and Bigs, and we should, but know that there's only really one FTG here. Alrighty, guys. So last week we got a heads up from Dark Horse Tackle that they wanted to do a little bit of a giveaway. Like, they wanted to give away a Weekend Warrior box, which is the box that the three of us get from Dark Horse Tackle. So you get a nice variety of baits every single month. They wanted to give away a box to a lucky listener. And last week we decided we were going to have some fun with our Jigs and Bigs hotline. And we put out a call for you guys to reach out, give us a call, and just kind of like let us know what you thought about Jigs and Bigs, or whatever message that you had for us. Go ahead and pick up the phone, leave us a message, we'll put you in. So we have everybody who completed, everybody who quote unquote
knew the assignment.
We have 5 entries for this, and we're going to play all of them, all these voicemails for everybody, and then I have the names lined up in Riffle Raffle, and we're going to go ahead and select a winner. So let's listen to this first, and this is the shortest message, but this one hits home. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's Roadkill Nick. The thing I probably like most about Jigs and Bigs, I mean, you guys are just funny as fuck. That's the only way to put it, really.
I can stand 100% behind that. I feel good about it.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. That is a good thing. This next one is from Brady. Let's see what Brady had to say.
Hey, Bobby, Shawn, and Joe. It's Brady. I just want to say I'm a big fan of the show. I love what you guys are doing. And just wanted to throw a suggestion out there that maybe you guys could start a TikTok of clips from what you guys record for the jig heads and throw those out there on TikTok. I think it'd be really good to help you guys get a little more traction. Not saying that you guys don't get enough traction, but I think it'd be fun to see what they see. And, you know, I do want to become a jig head here soon, but just want to let you guys know I appreciate everything you do and have a good one.
I love that. That is exactly.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's what the fucking headline. That's what the headline. That's what the hotline is for. Is for shit like that. Now, I love the idea, like, because we do have a TikTok, and I've been putting videos on there here and there, and you know, we have a little bit of traction over there. I try to put all the content on all of the things, Instagram, Facebook, and that's a nice transition. Everything I do from Instagram goes right over to our Facebook group, and then our the last one being TikTok kind of gets a little bit neglected. It's tough to show what the jig heads are seeing that everybody else isn't, because I feel like the primary focus for the jig heads is the engagement. So like, you know, Metal Jones and Chrissy Fishing and Vidal jumping in here, you know, and this is like, we're talking about Monday at noon. We're doing this, you know, we're recording this. So it's like, you know, every week we get a handful of folks and they're able to engage and kind of jump in and have this conversation as it's going, you know, chime in on the things that we say. And, you know, maybe we need to do some screen records or something like that to show what it looks like on the YouTube side or something like that. So that way it kind of shows. But we do have something planned where we're going to be doing a full across the board social live show. We're going to record, and then basically the only thing that's not going to make that live show, like anything else, would be the interview. The interview would be exclusive to the actual podcast. So we're going to be doing one of these to try to like introduce, because we have a massive number of followers like on our Facebook group or our Facebook page. What is it? 35,000 over there. And, you know, I mean, those folks aren't necessarily listening to the show. And we want to just kind of do a little introduction and kind of figure that stuff out. But I like where Brady's head is at. And I especially like that Brady used the opportunity to make a suggestion on the show, because now that gives us food for thought. So thank you, Brady. We appreciate that. Who's this next one? Oh, this next one is Jeff. Let's see. What did Jeff have to say?
My name's Jeff Donnelly. I'm calling to let you know I love the show. I love the length. The 3-hour episodes are awesome. It makes for a nice commute to work every day. And the FTG, they're sometimes pretty funny. That's a good segment. Thank you guys for what you do. Tight lines.
Love that, Jeff. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for the kind words. It really, really does go a long way. I like the FTG as well. And I like the fact that he said, and I don't get to hear this enough,
that he likes the length.
You know what I mean? And I know you guys are thinking that
Jeff teed it up for us right there. If you didn't hit it, I was.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. This next one that comes in, this is from, and it's a little tough to hear in the message. It's either Gilly or Billy. I think it's Gilly, the way it comes out. Let's go ahead and do this. Gilly is a truck route driver that listens to us, and apparently we make his week a little bit better. So here we go with Gilly.
Fellas, what's going on? One last cast with Gilly here. You find me on the socials. Love the show. Love the content. It's not always all fishing. It's not everything else. It's a great mixture. Thank you for what you guys do. I enjoy listening. I'm a route driver out Monday through Friday, and you help me get through my work week. Keep up the good work. Talk to you soon.
Love that. That's exactly what I like to hear.
Bobby, that is one. All right, so we're gonna help Gilly out here because he just dropped a dime for us. Right there.
One last cast.
One spelled out ONE _ LAST _ CAST _ with _ Gilly GILLY. G as in golf.
Cool, good.
Gilly.
All right, so I did hear it right. One last cast with Gilly. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And that's ultimately what we do. We know that we're not like every other podcast that's out there. And we love that. We want to be in that space. We want to be the podcast that anglers go to number one, get a little bit of value about the pastime or the sport or the hobby, however you want to quantify it. Like, we want to give you something there, but we also want to offer you guys some entertainment, because ultimately, for the style of this show, if you're not at least entertained, like, what are we doing? You know, so that's part of the reason why we allow the shows to be as lengthy as they can be and as diverse as far as topics go. So Gilly, awesome. Now this last one, this one is the FTG. And this one comes from no stranger to the show. Dare I say, I mean, between this caller and Roadkill Nick, these two guys we've heard from a bunch of times. Good old Scott Wood. Scott Wood gave us a call. Let's see what Scott has to say.
Hey, Bobby, Shawn, and who the fuck is that other guy? Joe Brown.
This is Scott Wood from Maine. This is doubling as my entry for the Dark Horse Tackle Box, and I also have an FTG. The FTG is me. I literally messaged Shawn last week saying I never catch multi-species, and then I didn't enter the multi-species tournament. I proceeded to fish an open and catch 7 different species in the same day. Fuck me.
Fuck me, the man says. If anybody's looking to fuck Scott, his address is...
Oh, Uncle Frank.
Yeah, you don't want Uncle Frank.
Oh my goodness. So that's pretty awesome, man. Thank you guys for calling the hotline and getting us your thoughts and entering this little giveaway. Like I said, we got actually quite a few more, probably about 15 or 16 different messages. And again, without a voicemail, I don't know if these are legit. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm not 100% sure what the deal is, but you guys can call us at any time. The drawing, the giveaway is about to happen. So you know, but if you want to voice your opinion, let us know what you think about the show, make a suggestion, submit an FTG. I mean, anything, give us a call anytime, 24 hours a day. 413-324-8519 is the number. You can call us. It's a hotline. Leave us a message. It is basically on Do Not Disturb. So it's not going to ring and alert me or anything like that, but we will get your messages. And we love to do this because then we get the audio to be able to incorporate into the show. So to everybody who entered, we appreciate that. Let's go ahead and do our drawing right now and see who the winner is. All right. I am so excited. Let's see. Do we have any background music that I can put on here? No.
I think you're excited. Whoa. Hello.
I don't know.
Did you guys catch that while we're waiting?
What was that?
That was some asshole who just pulled out of my street and decided that he was going to floor it, and I just watched my neighbor's kid take a fucking header off those stairs.
Fuck that.
No, header. Oh, my God. That kid. Oh. Pandemonium of my fucking suburban neighborhood here. Jesus Christ.
So the winner is none other than One Last Cast with Gilly.
Oh, there you go.
Nice job. So we're going to reach out to Gilly. We're going to get his mailing address for the Weekend Warrior box. I believe it's this box. The one with the knee knocker, the one with that HH Custom Baits micro jig, the one with that Stoneman and Sons lure, all that stuff, and those soft jerk baits as well. I believe it's this box you're going to be getting. So congratulations, Gilly. We'll be in touch with you. Reach out and get your info, and the guys over at Dark Horse Tackle will handle getting you your big prize. Fantastic. We have one final segment before we jump into our interview segment for segment number 3, and that is our Gear of the Week segment, which I like this wider spectrum of what we're going to talk about. This is a good thing.
Okay, gearheads, it's time to talk tools. Jigs and Bigs Gear of the Week.
Gear of the Week. And it's funny because this isn't one specific item. Joe had an experience that he felt like was a good enough experience to kind of mention in this spot. So Joe, take it away.
Yeah. So before I get into anything, I just want everyone to know that we were not paid to do this. I didn't even talk to these people. It was just an experience I had. But so down about 3-4 miles from the Lake Hartwell Green Pond Landing launch, there's a little spot. Not a little. There's a spot called Lake Hartwell Fishing and Marine. So this place. It is everything from a gas station, is a convenience store. Mm-hmm. It is a marine maintenance store. It is a phenomenal, huge tackle shop with every single bait, brand, type, lures, rods, reels that you can absolutely think of. And, it's a mom and pop shop for sure. It was cool for us. The boat, basically everyone went there every morning. That's where I got my coffee in the morning. That's where I got my snacky snacks for the boat. And each time I grabbed, a bait or two. Super nice people. You could tell it's all family owned. I don't know. Like I said, I never met them. I didn't talk to them. but it was just, I was very impressed by this place. You know, I ran out of GGs for my live well. I was able to go there at their, you know, open at 5:15 in the morning, you know, on my way to the boat ramp. One thing that they did tell us is that they actually open specifically early when there's big tournaments in the area, just so, you know, for people that forget stuff and whatnot. So they had non-ethanol fuel for the boats, which was really cool. Yep. They're the only place around. It was great because it really had that like old school tackle shop vibe that, you know, we've seen around here, where it's just like, you know, it's not particularly clean. It's not particularly nice. Everything, you know, nothing's really in a particular order. Everything's just kind of everywhere, but they have everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, it caused me to go around and look at every aspect part of the shop. You know, I was saying I'd run out of, smaller shaky heads while I was there, and I was able to, they had Picasso, you know, quarter ounce shaky heads. I went and grabbed a bunch of. They had the bait that I was using down there, because I wanted to kind of bring down my profile a little bit, as they had robo worms. So I grabbed robo worm finesse worms there. But they have everything from, every brand you can think of was there. Super nice. Just, if you guys are down at Lake Hartwell, stop in and check this place out. It is absolutely phenomenal. Prices are average. You know, they could put the price up. I mean, you could tell the price is up a little bit, which is fine. You know, that's the way business goes. They're right next to the lake, and they know people are going to pay it.
Convenience and everything. Exactly.
Yep, that's totally fine. But yeah, so Lake Hartwell, fishing and marine, mom and pop shop, gas station, convenience store, public restaurant, everything. Go check it out if you guys are down there. Anderson, South Carolina, right outside Lake Hartwell.
That's awesome, man. I love shops like that cater when they have the geographic location. Now, were they right on the water?
No, they're about they're probably 3-4 miles away.
Gotcha.
Yep, but they're right on the main route to the boat ramp.
Yep.
So
that is awesome. And I think that's kind of, I mean, I'll be honest. I think, like, if we're talking tackle shops, and, you know, your boy's been to a few tackle shops, I think my opinion is that like the convenience of being able to go to your local mom and pop and get baits that like anglers are demanding in that area, that geographic location, is one thing. But like every tackle shop could feasibly do that. What makes them unique is the way that they tailor themselves toward different stuff. Like I had that experience when I was at Chickamauga with Talkin' Tackle, and they weren't right on the water, but like they had everything you could possibly need there in a different sort of angle. Like they had lodging. You know, they had the shop itself. They had full coolers with like beverages and snacks and things like that. So it was like, even if you were just on the way, you're like, oh yeah, well, like I gotta get some more terminal tackle. I gotta pick up some soft plastics. I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna grab some Diet Cokes for the cooler, a bunch of ice, and you know, a couple of bags of chips or something like that. And I think that it's those little details that make a tackle shop or break a tackle shop. You know.
Yep.
And some of that can just be community as well. And that's a big deal too, you know? I think that's awesome, dude. And if I ever am at Hartwell, I will. And it's the possibility is high because South Carolina is a spot where, you know, my family likes to vacation. You know, my daughter has friends in the area down there. She only gets to see like once a year. So I could be down in that area, and I'll keep this in mind. Check out the Lake Hartwell Bait and Tackle. I love it. I love it, guys. All right. So we're going to go ahead and shift gears here. We have an interview coming up. I got Fletch from All Things Overland in the beef seat this week. We're talking about overlanding, like vehicle reliant camping, and how does this basically align with what you want to do, this is a great way for you guys to be able to extend that adventure. You know, there's nothing worse than driving 2 or 3 hours to fish for 2 hours at a body of water to turn it back around so you can drive that 2 or 3 hours back. That kills a whole day for a couple hours of fishing. Instead, you know, utilize some of the tools that these overlanders are using to, you know, make that long trip and stay a couple of days. But, you know, do so without having to pay for additional lodging or something like that. It's a good spot to get some info to extend your fishing adventures. We'll see you guys in a bit. Don't go too far. I'm up next with our beef seat guest, Fletcher, from All Things Overland. Don't go too far. Hey guys, Bobby Roast Beef here from Jigs and Bigs. You know, if there's one thing I can't stand spending money on, it's on something that's not versatile, something that I can't get a lot of use out of. I want to talk to you about Frost Buddy. What Frost Buddy is it's one of those can coolers. I've seen these before. In fact, I have some that are limited to only fitting one specific size of can, like a standard 12-ounce can. I stumbled onto Frost Buddy, and I was blown away with it. So versatile. Fits standard cans, tall cans, slim cans, and even 12-ounce bottles. And the magic is the insert fits all of these items in various stages within the insert. And when you take that out, you can fit a full 16-ounce tall boy can. In fact, it even doubles down on being versatile with the coffee lid. And on my recent trip to Chickamauga, I had a field day with this thing. I was throwing beer cans in it. I'd have coffee in the morning. On the drive, I was throwing in all different sizes of cans for different canned coffee products to keep me awake on the long drive back. The thing was amazing. So I recommend you check out Frost Buddy. If you're in the market for either a travel cup for your coffee or a can cooler at all, either one of those, check it out. For the money, you cannot go wrong. What I've done is this. In the show notes for this podcast you're listening to right now, if you look there, you'll find a link to Frost Buddy where you can get yours. And not only can you go and get your Frost Buddy there, but you can help out the show as well. Go and visit that link in the show notes to this podcast. Check out a Frost Buddy. Tons of colors, tons of patterns, all kinds of great stuff. And it's a great spot to put your Jigs and Bigs sticker too. Take it from me, Bobby Roast Beef. You're going to get the most versatility out of this one product, probably out of anything you're ever going to buy, especially for anything that you're drinking. Frost Buddy. It works for me. I'm a happy guy. Jigs and Bigs is your favorite fishing podcast, right? Why not show the world how much you love the show while directly supporting us? We have men's and ladies' shirts, hoodies, and a variety of hats. We even have a waterproof outdoor Bluetooth speaker so you can listen to your favorite podcast while out on the water if you like. Check out jigsandbigs.com/shop to visit the store and gear yourself up. If you really can't get enough of this show, consider becoming a jighead and joining our Patreon. It's a subscription that gives you exclusive access to recording sessions that allow you to engage with us as we record the show. We also have some exclusive content there just for our jigheads and even have some special promo codes. Space is limited, so join now at jigsandbigs.com. Finally, if you're local to our area in Western Massachusetts, consider checking out the Western Mass Fishing Report, posted weekly at northeastwildwoman.com. We have amazing contributors providing great content and info for local conditions and what's been going on and working recently. Jigs and Bigs, so much more than just two lightly roasted hippies trapped in the 90s arguing on the internet about fishing. All right, guys, we're back. And, I've been saying this for the last handful of weeks, 4, 5, 6 weeks. It has been an amazing turnout for guests this week. We have awesome guests coming up in the beef seat, talking all kinds of stuff, all sorts of outdoor adventure. This week is no different. We have Jason Fletcher with us. And some of you guys, that name might ring a bell because Jason, or Fletch, as he's referred to in the overlanding community, is a content creator in that overlanding space, and he handles all things overland, the YouTube channel, the podcast, and dare I say, amazing source of information for especially folks just kind of dipping their toe into overlanding to kind of get a grasp of it and sort of like digest it a little bit more reasonably than, diving in to the deep end. So, Jason, do you prefer Fletch? What do you prefer, Jay?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, I don't care, honestly. Most of my friends call me Fletch.
Gotcha. I love, well, and I'll tell you, when I first heard the show, I was like, we're about the same age, close. I mean, I know like I look like I'm 10 years older than you do, but I would say that if folks call you Fletch, obviously that's your last name, but is there a tie to the film?
No, it's kind of a funny story. Well, so my dad was an athletic director for years and years at like the high school that I went to, and then at other high schools in the area, and everybody always called him Fletch. So then it's me and my brother, and we were both Fletch too. So it was always super confusing.
Gotcha. Yeah. Which Fletch?
But yeah, it had nothing to do with the movie. That's a complete coincidence. That's just always been a nickname for like 50, 60 years with my dad, and then with us when we were born.
Well, I was set up ready to play this as a backup. I'm just going to go for it anyway, thinking that if like Fletch's spirit animal, what would that spirit animal be called? Moon River. And for those of you of a particular age familiar with that film, you know what that scene is from. Oh, good stuff. So let's talk, Fletch. Let's talk about your history with overlanding, and like, man, you dove into it, creating like a variety of ways for folks to digest the content that you bring to the table, which there's no shortage of. You've been at this for a number of years. Can you sort of give us like a little bit of a history as far as how we got up to this point?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that's a fantastic question. I would say I started about 4 years ago. And at that time, I'd never shot a video. I'd never edited a video. I'd never shot a podcast or done anything like that. But I've always been kind of a car guy. I like to modify vehicles. I like to, I've grew up in Southern Indiana, so I've always liked to camp, but I never really put the two together, like the vehicular side with camping.
Yep.
And so, about 4.5, 5 years ago, my kids were getting a little bit older. They were probably about like 6 and 9. So they were getting up to that age where we could, get them out and get them exploring a little bit.
Yep.
And I had, because of the kids, I had gone back to like boring leased like Honda Accord world.
Yes.
So
yep.
I'd had boring vehicles, right? And so then I was like, you know what? I want to get back into four-wheeling. I had a Jeep before. I had some like sports cars and stuff before. I was like, kids are getting older. I don't have to be quite as responsible. Let's get something that is a little more fun. And I've always been a Nissan guy for like 25 years, probably. Like some of my first cars were Nissans and I loved them. So then I was like, what can I get that will do the overlanding thing and carry some gear and take the family? And so the Xterra kind of fit that bill for me.
Yep.
And so I started researching that on YouTube, right? Like I started looking up like what are people doing for Xterra modification and off-roading and stuff. And then I just sort of fell into overlanding. Like I started to see these Xterras with rooftop tents and, bumpers and bigger tires and stuff. And I was like, that's really cool.
Yep.
But I know nothing about this. So I did a bunch of research, sort of taught myself as sort of a fun exercise. I was like, I wonder if I could just shoot stuff with my phone and like edit it. So I'm not advising it. Don't go back and watch my really early YouTube stuff, but it is pretty horrible. Like, I mean, it's like, it looks like I'm in a dark dungeon talking to myself with a computer in front of me. Like, it's not great. But then you learn, right? And you evolve over time. But then I wanted to share what I had learned with other folks. And that's kind of what started the whole thing.
That's awesome, man. And it's cool because we got to see the journey,
Yeah.
I started following your content probably not last winter. It was probably a year before that was when I first started seeing it. So we got to see the evolution from your Xterra, which was awesome. I mean, and I'll be honest, I think that, there's obviously in overlanding in general, there are niches for different vehicles. You have folks that love a truck. You have folks that love a Jeep. You have Toyota fans. But Nissan's like kind of a little bit nichier, I think, than anything else. And to see, I've only seen a couple of like really extravagant Xterra builds, and I think yours is among them. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, yeah, I had a buddy who had an Xterra, man. This is crazy. This is cool to see all this. But then you got into the Frontier and then the new Frontier. How's the new truck?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just tough to be, for years and years, I've kind of said, almost feel like a trader, right? Like I've always said like, oh, it just doesn't make sense to spend that money on a new vehicle, right? Like that's always kind of been my thing. I'm kind of the budget guy, and I still stand by that statement. Like I think if you were just looking, especially if you're looking for like a secondary vehicle and you're looking for something that's going to be reliable and capable, but also more budget oriented, like an Xterra or a second gen Frontier, like, 05 through 2020 ish, 21. Those are great options, and you can save a ton of money. I just kind of hit a point where my last two vehicles had been older vehicles, and I'd had a secondary vehicle because I always had something. And it wasn't that the Nissans are unreliable. It's just when you do this thing, right? When you go out and you beat on these trucks for 50,000 miles in 5 years, like you're going to have wearable items wear out.
Yep.
So I'd always been like a 2-vehicle person. We were kind of running out of room in the driveway. My oldest now is 13, so we're getting close to him needing a vehicle. So we were like, you know what, let's consolidate. I want something really new that I never have to worry about, that I don't need a second vehicle, for maintenance stuff, but I can just take all the time. And tell you what, I don't love all the technology stuff, like the sensors and the beeping and the backing up and that sort of thing. But aside from that, like, it's more comfortable. It's got really nice tech in it. It's quieter. There are a lot of benefits.
Oh, for sure. And, it's like budget doesn't mean cheap. It's like budget is what you set with that ahead of time so that you know what you've got to spend. And a lot of people hear new vehicle, but at the same time, you've got to weigh personally, like, is it worth it? And I mean, like, I recently bought a new vehicle. I bought a 22 4Runner. In late 2021. And it was it was one of those things. Inventory was insane. I had looked at the used market, but it was not worth it to buy used at that point. So it's like, you got to look at what's going on. What's the best investment for you? And the other thing too, and I love that you said this, there was one of your episodes, and I want to throw this out like immediately. I was like, this resonated with me big time. You said, and I believe that this was on your trip at the Wyoming BDR, which we'll talk BDRs in a minute because I'm about to dive into one myself. But BDRs, like, it was during that trip, and you said, there's two types of overlanders. There's the ones that have a goal where they want to conquer this, they want to see this through to the end, check that off their list, and it's like, they're more goal oriented. And then you have another batch of overlanders that are more experienced overlanders, like, why are you doing this? What are you actually getting out of it? And, being able to, like, I think it was that trip where you said that you guys had gone off the original route to check out the Grand Tetons, I think. And it was worth all the, changing of the routes and everything that went into that. It was worth doing for the experience. And I think that that's so true for everybody. You got to look at overlanding. And I mean, I know this is long-winded, but a lot of times when I say the word overlanding, my thoughts are, because everybody likes to define what it is. I think it's the biggest umbrella term of all of them. And so much follows into it with a couple of criteria that are important, like that vehicle-based reliance. When you're relying solely on everything that your vehicle is bringing out there. So it's like, you got to figure, is dropping, 70 or 80 grand on a new truck that you're going to like beat the hell out of in the woods. Is that a good idea? Well, maybe not. Maybe you should look used for something like that. But if you're just going down dirt roads, getting off pavement and looking for places to camp and recreate in the woods, or like I'm dragging a kayak trailer. Like, I can't, quote unquote, off-road. I can't do it. Right. You know what I mean? I'm going to damage the primary investment that I'm bringing out into these areas to be able to utilize. So it's like, it really is like, it's so many things to everybody. And there's no, like, I like to think there's no one way that it has to be done. You know what I'm saying? Sure. But I do. Yeah. I feel like when you said, there's two different types of overlanders. Can you kind of go a little bit more into detail and describe what you meant there, especially with the experience side of things?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it was interesting because on the Wyoming BDR, right, like that was the first time that I had done a preset route like a BDR. Yeah. So like, I'd gone 3 or 4 years ago when I first got the Xterra. We went to West Virginia, but we didn't really have a plan. We just had like a couple camp spots we were going to explore. That's kind of how I've historically always done it. And I enjoy that the most. And that's kind of, to me, is the experience base, right? Where it's not, I'm trying to conquer Imogene Pass, or I'm trying to get this Jeep sticker for my truck. I'm not trying to do a thing because people say it's a cool thing. Now, don't get me wrong. There's experience in that too. I want to do those things. Oh, for sure. But to your point of like the Grand Tetons, at first I was a little bit like, guys, I'm shooting a video on this Wyoming BDR. And like, if we stop and we don't finish the BDR, like, how am I going to pitch that in my video? And then I was like, you know what? So I was a little like apprehensive about it at first. I'm like, we're going to lose a whole day, like day and a half doing this adventure. But then it reminded me when we got over there, like, I mean, we're 100 miles away from these mountains and they are looming into the clouds in front of us. Yep. And it's like, my mind is blown. Like we drive 40 miles and we stop at a roadside, overlook, and you can see the mountains in the distance. And you were driving all day to get to these things. And when you're close to them, it's just mind boggling how big these things are. And so it was at that point where I'm like, because we were all on road, it wasn't really off-roading. It wasn't, we went into the national park, we went to the visitor center, like, it kind of like took us out of the survival, roughing it kind of thing for a minute.
Yep.
But the experience was totally worth it. And taking that side journey was one of my favorite parts of the entire trip. And then when I looked at the actual BDR, there was like section 2 of the Wyoming BDR is an extremely like rough. It's not hard. It's not technically challenging. Like you need a lifted Jeep on 40s to do it. But it's like if you took a road and then washed it out for 100 years and then threw, softball to watermelon sized rocks on top of it and then concreted them in place. That's what it's like.
Gotcha.
And so we were on that for an entire day. And I mean, I'm in this brand new truck, to your point of like do I want to beat up my truck? I'm like, why are we doing this again? Like, what?
Yep.
I mean, I did it, but like, it wasn't really challenging. There wasn't it's not like I overcame a thing. I overcame a discomfort, right? Yeah. But like, it really made me think about like, okay, I can say I did section 2 of the Wyoming BDR, but was it really worth beating up my truck?
Yeah.
For that. So then the Tetons thing, while technically not overlanding probably, right, was amazing and one of the best parts. So yeah, I think we just have to think about it, right? Like that really made me think a lot of like all these people that you watch take these specific trails and they're like, we did it, we conquered it. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. It's rough, right? Like it's not necessarily fun. Yeah. I fear that a lot of newer folks might try something like that and be like, this is not for me.
Yep.
And you don't have to do that. That's kind of my point.
That's exactly it. Like I remember one of the reasons why I first started watching your stuff was you were talking about the Hoosier State National Forest. And I think that the national forests are a great way to get into this. And, I mean, it is dispersed camping. You're not, you know what I mean? When you're in these areas, we have an area nearby to us in Vermont that's a national forest. The same kind of idea. I've gone and scoped it out before, and there's, it's nearby some pretty awesome fishing. So it's on my radar. And like with the BDRs specifically, like when you talked about how you were on pavement, I've noticed that I discovered the NE BDR, the Northeast backcountry discovery route. And I took a look at it and did a little bit of research into what it's all about. I didn't realize that it only kicked off in like 2010. I thought it was much older than that, but it's pretty crazy. And I go through, and it was so we had Joe Logan on, who is another overlanding creator on the show. His channel is Logan Party of 4, and I mean, you want to talk about like you mentioned, you've got 2 kids. I'm a parent as well. I've got 2 girls. He was out with his youngest at I think weeks old. Once mom was ready to go, like they all go, and I'm talking like Yosemite, 3 weeks old. Wild, you know what I mean? And I'm like, it's kind of crazy, but I discovered them because of their trips on the NE BDR, and I was looking at it, I'm like, this kind of looks doable. And I noticed they were going right by spots that I currently fish. When they cut through into Massachusetts, I'm like, that's part of the route. And it is wild because it'll take you from, these backcountry roads where you're on pavement, and looking at sites like up here, there's a famous floating bridge in Vermont, and then all the covered bridges all through New England. Like they're a big part of it as well. And there's oftentimes they'll recommend on the BDRs local businesses, and they're there to support here's a really great cafe you can stop and grab lunch, that's fantastic, or they've got this great local product that you can buy over here while you're on this trip. And these things are I think the shortest one is 1,200 miles.
Yeah,
they're long, I mean, it's a big commitment, and I think that's pretty cool way of looking at it. But so I had reached out to Logan Party of 4 to ask some questions about the difficulty and everything, and they actually told me they're like so there's a Mid-Atlantic BDR, which I think is really nearby to where you're at, because it starts in Pennsylvania and then pretty much goes down and ends up sort of at the corner of the Tennessee-Virginia border. And I guess it's a pretty enjoyable ride. It's not very challenging at all. But there's parts in the NE BDR, these, what do they call them, Class 4 roads in Vermont that are just I've seen some videos of trucks, and Jeeps that are out there doing this. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. I don't know if that's for me, but I guess that they put all these byways in here so that way you can bypass any of the real technical stuff if it's crazy. Sure. It's just bananas.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I like to say I've gone on one like real overlanding trip where it was dispersed camping. We're in the Moosehead area of Maine, in northern Maine. We had to go on these logging roads, like 6 miles of them, in order to get to our camp spot. We got really lucky with the spot that we got, but everything else that I've done has been, I've truck camped at the boat ramp if I've been fishing in an area and I want to. And for me, like it gets down to experience, getting out there and bringing my gear so that I can make a longer trip out to an area to fish a certain, group of waters, but not have to turn it right around. I can maximize my time out there and kind of do it in an economic way, because like, although you have to buy all this gear or this camping gear in order to go and do this, and maybe you're actually using campsites that you're paying for, it's not like getting a hotel for a couple of nights. You know what I mean? You're not paying that amount of money. So where I see this in the fishing community is with tournament anglers. A lot of folks are taking that, that rig that they've got that they use to, lug around. If it's a boat, they might throw a rooftop tent or set up their truck so they can sleep in their vehicle. And then this way they're, if I'm going out to an area for a tournament and I want to pre-fish for 2 or 3 days. And, I've got an area that I can set up and be ready to go and be self-sufficient out of that. Great. That cuts down on my lodging expenses and, having to go and rely on eating, out everywhere. I can then cook my own meals and, be self-sufficient. So that's where like a lot of that came from. And I know it's a super niche group because tournament anglers are the smallest group of fishermen. The recreational anglers there's so many more. But, are there any, like, I would say, like, outdoor activities that you see that kind of abut close with the overlanding experience or seem to benefit off of some of that gear?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, and I mean, fishing is definitely a tie-in, right? Like, when you reached out, I was like, oh, yeah. I could totally see, like, if I was more into fishing myself, like, I'm already there. You know what I mean? Like, we were in Wisconsin a week or 2 ago and we camped right on this river and it was beautiful. And I was like, man, we should have brought some fishing rods or something because we could have just sat here and enjoyed. For sure. So there's definitely that. I mean, hiking and stuff, kayaking, I think all that stuff ties in. I've been fascinated with the idea here in Indiana, down in Hoosier National Forest, there's a reservoir called Lake Monroe. And it's this massive reservoir. I'm sure you could fish in it and do that sort of thing. But I've seen some videos of folks that will drive their vehicles down and then park them like at a trailhead and then bring a kayak with them and some camping supplies. And they'll kayak out to like these peninsulas in this lake.
Yeah, gotcha.
And just camp there. And you can't access them by hiking. You can't access them by vehicle. It's like I could definitely see a lot of my gear overlapping in that if I just get a kayak. But I've really been thinking about that a lot because I'm like, that would be so fun to like get to someplace completely cut off and remote where no one can even get and just take a kayak out there. So I'm sure there's a ton of them.
Yeah, that is, it's funny. I was just camping this last weekend with a YouTuber, Fishing with Becca, and she's been, it's wild. She has, she started out making fishing content exclusively, both fresh and saltwater stuff. And she got into truck camping and she bought an F-150 and put a Lear cap on and created basically a sleeper in the back. And she's since changed her build a little bit, but she's built a tiny house on a utility trailer that she has. She's brought this thing out and camped on the ice with it. Wow. It's crazy. Awesome. So she made it. So it's very versatile. There's a lot of stuff that she has going on. But we just did a little trip because she was going out to Syracuse to do some salmon fishing, and I was like, I don't have the time to be able to dedicate to that. But I go, if you want to meet and camp, like just over the Mass border or something like that, anywhere on your way, or even in the Berkshires, I said, let's go ahead and do that. So we utilized, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. So we booked a site on HipCamp.
Yeah.
Right. What a crazy resource. It's like booking an Airbnb for a campsite. So if you're just looking for something, you're like, listen, it's a decent way to do it. And I mean, I feel like the fact that it was the two of us camping there with 2 rigs, it was kind of a bargain,
Yeah.
It really was.
I know a lot of folks that use Hip Camp. I've used it a couple times myself when like like on that Wyoming thing, like it's kind of a crapshoot, right? Like we're driving 20 plus hours each way to go out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like, do we stay in a hotel or do we, the Hip Camp is a good resource for at least having some sort of a guaranteed spot somewhere.
That's exactly it. And that's, I always thought about that too. Like if you're driving and you're doing like, the West Coast is kind of like the promised land for overlanding.
Right.
It really is. Like everything out West they've just got so much more open and public land than we do here on especially on the East Coast. So something like the BDR is perfect, but when you go out West, it's a little bit of a different story. But if you're taking your rig and you're going out to like Utah, you're going to be camping along the way a couple of times before you make it there. So to rely on dispersed camping might be kind of crazy. Like you might have to say, hey, we're going to camp in a Cabela's parking lot, or we're going to go and camp at a Cracker Barrel or something like that. You got to do what you got to do. But the idea of at least with something like Hip Camp, you can get a unique space, Yep.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I feel like it's more the norm than the exception that you're going to just be getting to camp after dark.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be beautiful and picturesque and idyllic, right? Like our first night on the way out there as well. So when we left for the Wyoming BDR, I had driven 6 hours south from a family vacation, got in my truck and drove 6 hours to Davenport, Iowa. On top of that. So I drove 12 hours that day. We stayed at a hotel the first night because we were all meeting up. I had some of these people I'd only talked to online. Like I was aware of them or friends with their friends, but I'd never met any of these people.
That's wild.
So we met at a hotel that first night. But then the second day we were like, we're going as far west as we can. Like we're going to try and get to Colorado and then go up through the bottom of the Wyoming BDR towards the top.
There you go.
And we ended up in Crooks, Colorado at about 9:30. It was pitch black. The dispersed spot that we had was literally a field with a bathroom in the middle of it, which, at least there was a bathroom. But we got out and I opened my door and it turned on the lights in the back of my truck and we were swarmed with so many bugs. I felt like I was in like an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
Like just bugs everywhere. We had to turn off all of our lights. We had to get straight into our tents in the dark to try not to bring the bugs in with us.
Yep.
And we went to bed at like 9:30 and it was horrible. Like it was a torture chamber. Like it was horrible.
Yeah.
But that's just, that's another thing that I feel like there's a lot of glorification of like overlanding, and there are a lot of amazing, beautiful spots, and it's worth it for that.
Definitely.
There's also going to be some bad nights.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
and it is nature. I mean, you're going to be dealing with like the bugs are a big one. They really are.
Yep.
When we did that trip to Moosehead, it was at a time of year where it was the first week of May. And during the day, as the sun was starting to set, the bugs were pretty rough. Like they were pretty rough. But once you lost that sunlight, the temp would go down to like the high 40s, low 50s, and the bugs were gone. It was
nice.
It was fantastic. It was amazing. And it was, and that's the thing you're kind of just like dealing with nature and you're at the mercy of what you've got to do with. Now, have you been taking the family out for some of your trips? Like everybody?
Yeah, we do some. So actually, we all went camping in Hoosier National Forest about 2 weeks ago, probably.
Oh, nice.
Took the dog, took the kids, the wife, everybody. It's just a different experience, right? Like,
definitely,
and it depends on their desire to be involved too, right?
Yeah.
Like, and they were excited, and it was a good time. We had a great time. But then it is interesting. Like people ask me a lot because I do a lot of solo trips. And they're like, oh, why do you do solo? Why don't you go with people? And I'm like, well, two reasons. One, being a weird YouTuber is awkward, right? Like it's weird to be sitting at camp with like 5 of your friends and be like, all right, don't laugh at me. Don't make faces at me. Like just ignore me. I'm going to shoot videos.
Yeah, I'm trying to record this.
Like,
yeah, for sure.
Well, that's part of it. And then two, like just the complexity. Like I am sort of a Spartan type person. Like if you ask anybody that I go with, like they're cooking tacos and all this stuff. And I'm over here with like a can of chili sitting on top of the fire, like a caveman.
It sounds like my wife.
So I favor simplicity. So yes, I do take the family and I love it when we go, but it is a lot of extra stuff and a lot more complete. You have to worry about everybody being happy and comfortable and safe.
For
and,
sure.
It just changes the dynamic. So, but yeah, I do a little bit of that and a lot of solo camping. So it's kind of a little each.
I need to do the solo camping more. Just to go and enjoy it and give it a go. I actually, this last trip that I went out with was sort of a test trip. We have 2 Boston Terriers, and one of them, the older of the 2, is great. He's such a well-behaved dog. He's awesome, but he's so anxious. Ridiculously so. And I keep all this summer, I was like, I'm going to take, next time I go out and I do a short trip where I'm not going to be out on the kayak for like 7 or 8 hours or anything. And I can, cause I'm never going to get him on that boat. It ain't going to happen. I want to, but I'm like, I don't think he can. I think I'll have a stroke if I put him in that kayak. So I was like, the next time I'm just doing something where it's, simple bank fishing. And actually it worked out where the place where we were this weekend was they have 75 acres, and I don't even know how many sites that they're running, like a bunch. There was one with a yurt. There's like a glamping spot, a bunch of other car camp. There's an RV that they rent, all kinds of stuff. Lots of options, but there's water. There's ponds right by. One that's got a nice sandy bottom that he made just for swimming. And one that's just like this great little ecosystem that's got pretty decent fish in there. I couldn't catch a bite because I was way more involved with, hanging out with the dog. And I'm one of those, I like to cook. My wife busts my chops all the time. She's like, you're going camping, have a hot dog. What is wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm going to do this like sausage and white bean pasta. And then tomorrow we'll do these breakfast tacos. Like, I don't fool around. And
I'd go camping with you.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And it's always good to go camping with people that like that kind of stuff, Yeah. You diversify what everybody's bringing to the table. But we had gone out and it was really great. He really seemed to enjoy himself. He definitely enjoyed the food. And I think I'm going to do more of that, but I think that for sure this year is going to see me doing more of those solo camping trips where I'm just going to go out, take him, find a spot like where I can just have a fire and hang out with him, cook a decent meal, call it a night, maybe bank fish nearby, and that would be perfect.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I do enjoy. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love my family and everything, but there is just something really peaceful about
the solitude,
like sitting by a campfire and reading a book.
Yep.
Or just spend it. I like cigars. I'll sit there and I'll smoke a cigar and just enjoy the sounds of nature and quiet for once.
Yeah, it is nice. It is nice. I find that when I took the trip to, because I live in a pretty busy city, it takes me about, I'd say probably about 14 to 20 hours. And then I stop hearing the ringing in my ears from like being in this urban environment over and over and over again. And I remember the second night we were at Moosehead, I went to bed and I was like, oh my God, I actually can hear the silence.
Yeah.
And it is, it's therapeutic. It really is. It's amazing.
For sure.
So I thought of this question just this week. I was talking with Becca and I said, I think I got a really good question to ask my guest this week about gear. And I'm going to share what my item is as well, but I want to know, what is the bougiest thing that you bring out with you when you camp? Like, it just enhances your experience so much that it's worth it, and you don't care if people give you any side eye.
The bougiest thing? Is that what you said?
Yep.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I've got a bunch of bougie stuff. Not to say that in like a conceited way. Like, I mean, I've got a bunch of stuff that I barely ever use because it's ridiculous. But I do. So one thing that is fairly expensive, but I freaking love it.
Yep.
Is my Jetboil Genesis. Like, if you're not familiar with that little stove, it is amazing.
Is the Genesis the one that like it sandwiches into 2 pieces?
Yeah, it's like orange.
It's modular, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. So it's. I had a Coleman fold and go for like 2 years and I loved it. And it was like $80 and the Jetboil Genesis is like a few $100. So it was like, it's like 4 or 5 times as much as this Coleman. So I bought this Coleman thing.
Yep.
But honestly, now that I have both, so I picked up a Jetboil Genesis and I shot a video like when I went with the wife and kids a couple weeks ago. And I mean, it's like a fraction of the size of the Coleman. You would like it as someone that cooks a lot. The control of the propane is phenomenal. Like, and everybody's like, dude, that thing for like, so I have the base camp. So it has the bag and like the pot and the pan and everything. And it all, to your point, sandwiches together and fits into like one good sized little bag.
Yep.
I think it's like $400 or $500. So it's not cheap, but I mean, like those stoves, like the big stoves are like a couple $100 all day long,
easily,
and they're giant, right? Yeah. So like this thing folds up, and I have a drawer system in the back of my truck, 2 big drawers, about 21 inches across, and maybe about the same tall.
Yep.
And if it's right in the corner of one of my drawers and takes up almost no room, and you pop that thing out, I mean, you could cook a full-fledged meal. It opens up, so you've got 2 burners.
Yep.
You can put a big 10-inch, saucepan on one side and a big pot on the other side, and it's just so nice. But all the time, my friends are like, "You had that Coleman; it was so much cheaper." I'm like, "Yeah, but like." Here, they're side by side. Look at them. You turn the gas down, and it like has a little spring built into it, and it pops back up. It's like impossible to actually control the thing and get the heat that you want.
Yep.
And on the Jetboil, it's just like I feel like I'm at home.
Super precision. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense, man. It's so what. So I'll get into what my accessories, and then I'll tell you. I have. You mentioned stoves, and I have like a thing with stoves. I'll tell you where I am, and it's a little ridiculous. So my bougie item, and this, I actually won it in a raffle. I was working. Are you familiar with what a Jack and Jill party is? I think in your part of the country, I think they might call it a buck and doe.
Okay.
It's basically a pre-wedding festivity where the couple will have a party. Lots of times there's raffles.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's really great. So whenever I work these, because that's what my business is. I have an entertainment company. So I host game shows. I've been a DJ for like 30 years. Like I do these things all the time. And every time I go, I allocate some funds and I buy some raffle tickets and I, pop some raffle tickets and some prizes. And occasionally I might win one of the raffle prizes. Lots of times I do this just to butter up my wife so I can do more fishing trips and other stuff. So I've won like, nice purses and things like that. And I bring them home to her and she's delighted. And I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm going to Champlain for a week. I'll see you. Nice. So it's a perfect trade-off. But I won this basket of coffee. Now I'm a big coffee guy. I'm a huge coffee snob. And it was my favorite roaster. This roaster is called Monsoon Roastery, and their product is out of this world. It was 3 cans of their whole bean coffee, and in this basket was a super cheap, non-bougie at all coffee grinder, right? Amazon Basics, actually.
Okay.
And I mean, my 4Runner has a 110 outlet in the back. So I can, and it's good. I think it's 400 watts. So this is not going to touch that at all. I use this outlet usually to charge my batteries that run my electronics in my kayak. I use it to run, smaller electronics if needed. A fan, I'll use it for that. But I was like, I wonder how it's going to do with this. And it works wonders. The coffee I made this last trip was amazing. And I was like, this is the bougiest thing I think I have. I really think it is. It's nothing that I've like pieced together or anything like that. But I'm like, I would definitely not. And I percolate my coffee. So it actually works really well with that inconsistent grind. It's pretty solid. I was like, this is all right. This is okay. So that's my thing. But as far as my stove woes, so I bought a couple of years back, before I was even getting into the truck camping and overlanding space at all. I picked up this little fish fryer. It's like a small turkey fryer. Like it's probably a 5-quart pot with this small propane burner. And I bought this for a fishing challenge where we made Rocky Mountain oysters. Wow. And are you familiar with Rocky Mountain oysters?
Yeah, I've heard of them before for sure.
Oh, okay. All right.
We don't have stuff like that in the Midwest, but yes, I've heard of them.
Oh, if you got bulls, you've got Rocky Mountain oysters. So we did this, and I set this off to the side, and I use it every once in a while for a fish fry or if I'm frying outside or something like that. I've even used this as like a pot when I make like chili, in the fall and I'm doing something outside. So I'll use that, and it works fantastic. I started using it because it fits my cast iron skillet, my big 12-inch cast iron skillet perfectly. So I was like, you know what? When I start truck camping, I'm just going to bring this out, bring my 20-pound tank and use this. It'll give me that platform. I also have a griddle I can use on it, and it works great. It's a little tedious, and it's a bit large to lug around for some of this stuff.
Sounds awesome though for doing fishing.
Yeah. It's fantastic. The thing works so good. And I decided what I would do instead is I would look at, some type of a camp stove, like the Coleman style camp stoves. In this time, my wife was like, she's like, maybe it'd be a good idea to have one of these things that don't rely on propane or any other kind of fuel. So she picked up this small solo stove for me. where you can burn like, brush and wood in there, and it works okay. It doesn't really fit like my coffee pot or anything on there. It's a little bit, it needs some modification. So it's kind of there as a backup. And then I'm like, all right, well, let's play around and see what we can come up with. I picked up as a backup, I picked up a GSI stove that goes on with the can tops of the isobutane fuel. And I found that to be the most reliable. It's like the backup of the backup. But even before I picked that up, I put in my camp box a couple cans of Sterno, like just as like the absolute backup. If I needed something and I'm like, it's like if it's wet and I can't burn any fuel, I'm like, I've got these cans of Sterno. I can put a couple of them together and then cook a meal. The meals that I cooked this weekend were cooked entirely on those cans of Sterno. It was crazy. And the only other thing that I had made was I used my GSI pot for coffee. That was the other one. But my father had given me this old Coleman stove, the white gas stoves that have the tank outside. And there is a modification for it, so you can switch it to propane, which would make it even more versatile because you can go back and forth. But I can light it, and then when I put it out, it's like relighting it. It just won't relight. So I haven't gotten it to the point yet where I 100% trust it, Yeah. And I gotta, we'll figure it all out. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm doing something wrong with the valves or anything, but it's pretty clear instructions. Like they're printed on the metal of the fuel tank. So I don't know. I got to fool around with it and see what comes out of it. But yeah,
I think there are whole like forums or Facebook groups dedicated to white gas stoves. Yeah. I've got a couple buddies with them, but I've never used one myself.
It's a rabbit hole. Like you can go down it is nuts, like restoring them, modifying them, all kinds of stuff. And I definitely I'm going to get it to work eventually. It's just a matter of figuring it all out. Like I got plenty of fuel. It's going to last forever. But
that's a whole nother hobby for you.
That, it really is. Whole other podcast, maybe. Who knows? Welcome to Coleman Stoves Official.
People would love that, I'm sure. The friend of mine that does that stuff, he talks about it nonstop, and he's constantly going to like Facebook Marketplace and garage sales and buying them. And it's a thing.
It is pretty wild. Like and I'm one of these guys where for me, it's all about versatility, even with fishing. Like I adapt the same thing. If I'm buying a piece of gear, I want it to be able to be used for multiple things. Even if it means like if I'm buying a rod, maybe I'll change out a reel depending on the type of presentation that I'm using. So I try to always have a spectrum of gear whenever I'm going. And I'm not one of those like, tinfoil cap, preppers where I've got a bunker in my backyard or anything like that. Nothing against those folks. I'm just not that guy. But I am one who agrees that one is none, two is one. You got to have a backup. And I do that same thing for my business.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I've gone a lot for like size. Like I almost feel like I've delved into the backpacking world.
Yeah,
a lot.
Oh, there's some great gear there.
Yeah, well, it's like especially with that Xterra when I first started. Like I did not have a lot of room in that thing.
Yeah,
and then I eventually took like half the back seat out to build a drawer system in the back and a slide with a fridge on it. So then I had even less space. I had kind of more space, but kind of less space. But there are some things you can, to your point of budget from earlier, like you can still be budget and spend a little bit more money on better gear that's smaller and serves more than one purpose.
Yep.
And it's a smarter buy overall. Like I've had 18 different chairs, right?
Oh,
and I bought all the cheap ones and they broken or a little bolt comes out and it's done. You can't use it anymore. And I bought all those things. And now I have a Helinox chair and I did a video on their little table and it's like $150 tiny little, knee height table.
Yep.
But it folds down to like the size of your forearm,
It's
and, like,
crazy. Yeah.
It's super high quality and it's really well built. And like, everyone's like, oh, $150 for a table. You could just take a bin and turn it upside down. And I'm like, you could, but like, it's not going to fold down to the size of your forearm. And then like, you got to have stuff that fits in that bin to make the bin make sense. And there's just, there's a lot of a lot of intelligence, I think, in buying once and crying once, right?
Yeah, there is. Like, it's one of those sayings where I hate to say it, but like there are situations in life where that is absolutely the truth,
Right.
Like where you just gotta, I guess it's in the long run, like just buying something that's cheap that's not gonna, either be versatile or potentially go the distance. Because it is when you buy a piece of gear, it's an investment. And there are poor investments and there are great investments. And it's like, if you're going to spend the money on a vehicle and you're going to do some modifications, to be able to enjoy it the best that you can.
Sure.
But like rock sliders are a good example. Like if you're going to, if you're one of those folks that you're going to be using your daily driver to overland with, you might want to spend a little bit of extra money and make sure you've got some skid plates and rock sliders so you're not jacking everything up if you're, putting it through its paces.
Sure.
Yeah, it is bananas. Let's talk some fishing a little bit. Let's get into that, because what's your experience been fishing? You mentioned earlier that you like the beer drinking aspect of fishing better than the fishing, and I'm for that. I am for that.
Your whole audience.
No, you'd be surprised. They're probably right there with you, to tell you the truth. They probably are. Like there's some that have maybe been sober for a while that are just like, you son of a bitch, that's not what it's about. But other than that, most of them,
absolute degenerates.
Yeah, nice. Yep. No, I hope so, because that is where I'm at. I'm a degenerate when it comes to fishing. No, I grew up in southern Indiana, so like we had fishing rods and stuff, but they were like the cheapy Zebcos and just simple.
They do the job though.
Yeah, it did the job. Like there was where I grew up in like Ellettsville, Indiana, which is down by Bloomington, so sort of like middle of southern Indiana. We were right by this. It was this big industrial place, Cook Medical. They make medical stuff, but they had this giant stocked pond, and it was bike distance from my house. So like we would ride through the woods down to Cook Medical, and there's this giant pond. There'd just be people sitting on the shore just fishing. And we used to do that all the time, like for 3 or 4 years, probably like through junior high and early high school. Like me and my buddies, that's all we did. Like every night that we could, we would go down there for an hour or two and try and catch fish. And so that was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed that. And then as I got older, then we started, then there were some people that I know that are more serious about it. And then we'd go and we'd sit there for hours and hours. And I'm like, we're not catching anything. Like, what are we doing? But the beer would make it enjoyable, right? And so that was the hanging out was the fun part for me. But I can do that fishing. I could do it camping. I can do it, however I want. But yeah, that's basically the length of my experience. Mostly when I was younger, a little bit now, but more drinking.
I will tell you, it just dawned on me. There is another niche group of anglers that 100% would eat up everything overlanding and the gear. And it's because it leans itself. Like this style of fishing is truly maximum downtime, but when the bite is on, it's 100% chaos when it happens. And that is carp fishing.
Yeah.
Carp fishing is where you'll, set baits and, you'll throw out whatever number of lines. You'll do this oftentimes in a group of people, but lots of people will do this like overnight. Like a carp fishing tournament lasts days. So having an overlanding rig, and a rooftop tent or sleeping in your rig or whatever it might be, even the tents, the ability to cook right at your vehicle, that lends itself right to it. And, it's one of those things where, those anglers 100% they're going to, this works for them. There's a good friend of the show, Todd Grubb. He's a fishing content creator out of Massachusetts, Rhode Island area. And he's real big into saltwater. He's also really he used to be big into bass fishing. Now it's sort of taken a backseat to carp fishing because of the potential of catching a 30 to 50 pound fish in an unassuming pond that you never would expect this type of fish to come from, and they're absolute giants. Like they're just, it's just crazy. So he had bought an old van, I forget, was it an Econoline? I think it is. This old van, and it had it was really homey, like on the inside, like shag carpet. It had a VHS TV combo built into it.
That's awesome.
Classic. And he did a build on it that it is beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. He wants to live full time out of this thing. He's got a sleeper. He's got a work area where he can edit. And I mean, his videos are beautiful. Like they're really, really well thought out. Very, very good stuff. And so he's got it all set. But that's exactly I think last January, he and I camped and did some carp fishing. And he's like, that's what it's all about. He's like, we'll throw out some lines. If those trigger alarms go off and we get bit, it's going to be chaos for 15 or 20 minutes. And then we're going to come back and have another old fashioned and finish our steaks. And I'm like, that's what we're going to do.
That sounds like my kind of fishing for sure.
We didn't get a bite. But we got a buzz and it was fun. We had a good time. That's what it's all about. And you know, I mean, that's just kind of how it is. Yeah, I definitely see there's I could see lots of carp anglers thinking like, oh yeah, maybe I'll throw a rooftop tent on and then this way I'm good to go. You know? Jump out of it like a firefighter.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, I'm even thinking here, right? Like there's some ponds in my neighborhood that you could fish just for fun. But like, if I'm going to go anywhere, I'm going to have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, and especially if you want to hit multiple spots or like take a long weekend, to your point. I mean, if you could get to that fishing spot and it's public land, then why not just set up? Camp there.
Set up and then you're good to go. You know, fish through the night. When it gets too dark, come off and, you know, enjoy your evening.
Drink an old fashioned and go to bed.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and then you got, then the first thing in the morning, you got first light bite. You go out. Oh, the bite was slow. Let's come back in, make breakfast. We'll go out for the afternoon. It's just, I really do. And this past year, I actually went out for the first time. I fished with a guide, and I'm a big proponent of that. Like if you're going to go out and fish, especially if you're overlanding, if you're on a road trip and you're going to these areas, you know, and you want to capitalize on doing some fishing, make some time to go out with a guide. The other cool thing about going with a guide is that you're not on the hook necessarily to bring gear. You know, so you got that for you. You show up that day, you go on your guide's boat. They've got all the gear that you need, and you can have an amazing day of fishing. But also, it puts you in a position where you can, you know, especially if it's a large body of water that you would never. It would take so many outings to really learn anything about. You also kind of get an idea of like how this works. You can talk to the guide and pick up some great tips. And then if you're going to be in that area, slip your kayak in and fish this one area and see if you can figure something out.
Yeah. Well, that's a great idea. There's kind of, it's interesting you say that because that makes me think of in overlanding, there's kind of been a push towards like paid guides for overlanding trips.
Oh,
and like
really?
the historic, there's, well, like if you are aware of like Trail Recon, right? Big overlanding YouTube channel.
Oh yeah.
He's gotten a lot of pushback and stuff in like Facebook groups because he teamed up with this, I don't remember what it's called, Misadventures or something. It's like a local place to him that owns a bunch of property and you can like do trips on and camp on and that sort of thing. But it's like a paid deal. And like everyone is like, it's free. You can go out whenever you want. And I'm like, yeah, sure you can. But like when I started, like my first trip was some dude posted in a Facebook group. I never met this guy. And he's like, me and 3 buddies are going out this weekend if anybody wants to join. And I was like, I'll go. And my wife was like, Are you
crazy?
Like, you don't know these people. You're going to meet them in the middle of a national forest. And then like, I hope you come back alive. And it turned out they were fantastic people. We had a great time.
Yeah.
And most of the time that's the case, right? But like, I mean, to be honest, like I didn't learn a lot then. I just hung out with people that knew more than me, right? So I tried to pick up some stuff, but like, there are a lot of these like guided, the same idea as what you're talking about, but with overlanding, where they will show you they'll help you with how to take these trails and how to overcome obstacles. They'll do some sort of like Gaia GPS training or class with you. Like, and they'll take you around and help you find the areas. And then you may be more comfortable to go out on your own. I think that's a great model for almost everything that we want to learn, right?
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny too, like we say this all the time when it comes to fishing, like confidence weighs in. You could throw the same presentation as your friend on the water and not be catching them, and confidence sort of like it travels down the line, like you've got to have confidence in what you're doing. And I think that probably would deter folks from getting into overlanding because they think it's so overly complex. Or, maybe they're like myself. I am 100% intimidated by the off-roading element of it. I am more of a gravel road. I got my poor family stuck in what would classify as a puddle, but I don't know that puddles have tadpoles in them. And I've got, so I'll give you a little bit of background about my rig, and you can roll your eyes all you want. Fletch, it's fine. But so I have a 2022 4Runner TRD Sport. And like Toyota folks, if they're listening, they're probably like, oh, it's a TRD Sport. So what a TRD Sport is, it's like a mix of like the not off-road premium. It's like a mix of like the SR5 and limited. So it has this, what they call X-Ray suspension. It's hydraulic and it's designed for really smooth on-road travel. And it's nice. This Forerunner handles so well. And, I've heard that there's a lifespan on this and that lots of people do swap out that suspension for something a little bit more geared toward off-road. And I'm prepared to do that when that time comes. But I'm like, I've got this perfectly usable, wonderful suspension right now that I'm not going to fool around. The other thing is about my truck, like it doesn't have lockers or anything like that, but it's got actual 4-wheel drive. It's got A-track. It's got downhill assist. It's it's very capable, but it has 20-inch wheels. So I've got those limited wheels, and my plan is I don't want to change the wheels just because stock wheels are so much stronger and more robust than anything aftermarket, Sure. And I think what I'm just going to do is find a pair of 20 ATs and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because like everybody, I feel like, especially because it's so tempting to watch all these videos, and like my old Frontier, the 2nd gen Frontier was a monster, right? Like it was Titan swap. So for those of you that aren't familiar, the Titan's the full size Nissan truck.
Yep.
You can actually, the way Nissan built them, you can pull the full axle out from underneath the rear of a Titan. You can pull the CVs and upper control arms and lower control arms and swap those over to the Frontier, and they all bolt right up.
No kidding. Okay.
You can basically, I turned my Frontier into a Frontier up top with Nissan Titan components, heavier duty, bigger components and suspension underneath. And it basically gives you like a bunch more up travel and down travel in the suspension. The previous owner put a locker in the rear of mine, so it had a locked rear end and that sort of stuff.
Yep.
That thing was a monster. And it would do all kinds of stuff. But you know what? My Xterra that I had before it, totally unlocked. It was an SE trim, top trim, with like, the 9-speaker Rockford Fosgate system in it, no lockers, no nothing, and a little 2.5-inch lift in 33s. And that thing's done as much as the Frontier did.
Yeah.
Now, the Frontier could overcome some obstacles, but like, to your point, I'm a little bit more of a wheeler because I started in that world. Like when my first 4-wheel drive was a Jeep Cherokee that I lifted and put bigger tires on, and we just went to off-road parks for like 4 years.
Oh yeah.
And so like, I do like the challenge of that. I don't want to beat up my vehicle, and that's in my older age. Now that was, 10, 15 years ago when I had the Jeep.
Of course.
So since then I'm tamer now, but I still like to do the obstacle stuff. But I think you'd be really surprised. Like to your point, the tires on those 20s are probably limiting. If you got some, bigger sidewall, slightly taller tires and maybe a small suspension lift, you could probably do another 30, 40% more than you can do now, but you could do a ton of stuff in that thing the way that it sits.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's the one thing, like I've got plenty of ground clearance. What limits me is my trailer. Like my trailer, that ground clearance is nothing like that. So if I'm out and I'm doing a trip and I'm pulling my kayak behind me, that's going to be, and my plan is to rig that so that it can actually carry all of my camping stuff all the time, every trip. So if I'm like, get off the water, and I'm like, I could use a cup of coffee. I have the coffee maker and the GSI stove stowed in that trailer, with everything needed, and I can go ahead and, put something together even right there on the spot. But that trailer is definitely going to be proved to be the most limiting thing as far as clearance goes. But I'm fine with that, because if I'm dragging that thing around, it's not off-roading I'm going for. I want to be in that. My ass is going to be in that seat for a good chunk of the time that I'm out there.
Sure.
And, I'll probably be setting up base camp.
Yep. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I love it, man.
Those trailers can be limiting. We had a guy on the Wyoming BDR that had an off-road trailer. It was actually a truly, on like 35s, tons of ground clearance. So the clearance wasn't his issue, but he had a Ford Ranger trimmer, which, it's a 2-liter turbo motor. So it's actually a pretty beefy motor.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, just watching him walk this thing up, rocky inclines with some off-camber stuff, I was like, nope, I'm good.
Yeah,
I don't need that in my life.
There's definitely some sketchy stuff where I'm like, oh my God. I was just watching a video. What was it? It was that Logan Party 4. They did the climb up Mount Washington and in New Hampshire, and which is, it's beautiful up there. They did it on a day where it was really overcast, so you couldn't see the impending doom that was immediately to your right hand side.
Right.
But when you go up on a clear day, it's frightening. I'm not sure that I'm the guy. I'm not sure. I'm going to try it. I mean, that the Mount Washington stuff is on my radar.
Sure.
And I believe it's part of the NEBDR where it cuts across right in the White Mountains. But I don't know. It's on my radar. We're going to try it, you know?
Maybe without the trailer.
Oh, definitely without the trailer. Yeah, definitely without the trailer. Nice thing is the trailer's so skinny that as long as my truck's fitting in between, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, that is the one really, really nice thing. And I did upgrade the trailer. It's a little bit larger than the previous one that I had. But yeah, it's I think I'm going to put new wheels on it to give a little bit more of a lift and kind of eliminate the drop hitch that I've got. And if I can do that, that'll help a little bit, but like I'm not asking it to do much. I mean, I've done some boat ramps with that, just trying to load my boat, and it's just been sketchy as hell. They've been washed out if they're not concrete, you know. So it can be kind of sketchy, but that's what we're here to do. Put stuff in sketchy situations. So let's go ahead. We'll wrap things up, Fletch. This was really, really awesome. I want you to do me a favor though, and I'm looking for our final question. 2 stories. Primarily what I'm looking for, the first one is like, you know, a story that you would share with somebody if you were at an event, like you're at a wedding, you're at the bar or something, and somebody says, yeah, hey, so you're one of those overlanders. What's that all about? Like the story that you're going to lead with to tell them about. And then I want the other story, which is the polar opposite, the biggest sort of moment that you've had in the backcountry.
Okay. Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
That's tough. So, all right. So one that's like the good one, the first one that you want is like an example of like why I do it.
Sure.
Right. Like something that like concreted in me why I want to do this thing forever.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, honestly, it's a little tougher now because I've been on several trips now. I mean, the Wyoming one was amazing, but the first one that really hooked me was West Virginia. So we were actually out east.
Oh, all right.
It was about a 10-hour drive from where I'm at now, but I had the Xterra. It had a small lift and tires. I camped in a ground tent. Like I wasn't super outfitted or like I didn't have a ton of gear at that time. But like the experiences that we had, the obstacles that we overcame, like, I mean, there was some pretty serious off-roading through like some of the national forests and things there, and just the beauty, right? Like there's one whole part, and I'm pretty sure I have this on a video that I made on the channel of the West Virginia trip. It's like a teaser. It's like a 2-minute long video.
That's right.
We went to this campsite that looked like it was something out of like the prehistoric era. Like there was a like an abandoned picnic table there covered in moss. Like it looked like it had grown out of the ground.
Really?
And we were at this campsite. And I mean, we did not see a person from the time we got there until the time we left. We walked like a mile, not even a mile, like a couple of 100 feet probably down the road and found this weird overgrown path. And we walked out on it. And it was this overlook where you could see all the surrounding mountains around you. And it was so breathtaking and amazing. Like, and you know, it's that kind of stuff. I feel like the same sort of stuff happened on the Wyoming BDR, right? Like we climb this mountain, it takes 6 hours and it's getting dark and you pull up to this campsite and you just look around you and you're like, no one else that I know, no one in my normal life will ever see this.
Yep.
Right? Like they'll never experience this, like the weather and the beauty. And like you, to your point about the temps, like you gain elevation, which I don't have here in the Midwest, and you drop to 50s and 60s and it's amazing.
Oh yeah.
It's 90s down in the valley. It's 50s and 60s at camp and you're wearing a sweatshirt, sitting around a fire, enjoying yourself. But like just that ability to get out there and really find stuff and see things that you know aren't a museum or aren't a zoo or aren't something that anyone can just go to whenever they want, makes it all worth it to me.
Definitely.
So yeah, the Wyoming BDR is definitely up there. The West Virginia stuff was a total surprise to me because I didn't know what to expect. But I mean, we were truly remote the whole time. We never touched a town. I never, you know, we had the gas that we had the food that we had, and we just spent 4 days in West Virginia, like in the mountains and the woods, and it was amazing.
That's amazing.
So those are good ones. Yeah. Bad or things that might turn people off. I mean, you know, I've had a bunch of experiences, particularly in Hoosier National Forest, where it's like sketchy and weird. In any of those national forests, like there are going to be other people, right? Like that is more of an established type of thing, especially in Hoosier National, because it's just gravel roads. So you'll see people out there with, you know, a 30-foot pull behind trailer driving through. You'll see somebody in a Prius or a Beamer driving through. Like it's very odd, but there was definitely a couple times where it was like middle of the night. And one time I had my oldest son when he was maybe 7 or 8 with me, and we were actually sleeping in the Xterra because we didn't want to set up a tent. It was like swelteringly hot. It was summer. I was like, we'll just crack the windows and we'll just sleep in the back of the Xterra. And I wake up and I hear voices and I look at my watch and it's like 1:30.
Oh, God.
I'm like, what is going on? And then I hear these people talking and I look out, and the spot we pulled into had these like two big ruts that I had to kind of go through. And you pretty much need a high clearance vehicle to get through these things. They're probably like 1.5 feet, 2 feet deep and really muddy. And I look out my window and there's like a guy poking a stick into these holes, and he has like a Pontiac Grand Prix, and then there's a Buick car behind him. And it's 1:30 in the morning. I'm like, what are these people doing looking for a campsite at 1:30 in the morning, you know? And then I hear him, he's like, I don't know, we can get through this. And then from the second car comes his wife's voice, and she's like, but I'm tired.
Oh my God.
And then he shines his flashlight into the campsite, sees my truck. I ducked down from the window, and he goes, there are people here, we gotta go. And they like backed out and left. And I was just like, what in the heck is happening?
Oh, that's amazing.
There's definitely going to be some weird experiences you're going to have. Another one that I'll keep short because I don't bore you, but it was hilarious. We were in a campsite. It was me and one other buddy, and it was kind of secluded and far off the road. And we saw like pair of Subaru headlights crest the hill and like start to pull into the camp and then stop because they saw us. And here in the Midwest, anyways, you just kind of wave at them and they wave at you and they back out.
Yep.
Right? Like that's the SOP. But this guy kind of then like pulled down another 20 feet and stopped, and we're like, are we about to get murdered? Like, what's happened? What is this? We're waving. That means go.
That means get out of here.
Bye.
Yep. Bye.
Right. And so then finally, he just like pulls all the way down into the campsite, and like this dude gets out, and I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? This has never happened before. And as soon as he gets out, like he says hello, and I notice he has like a French Canadian accent, and I'm like, oh, he's not from here.
Oh,
he doesn't know the rules. And his name was Frank. He had quit his job and was going to travel for 6 months and live out of his Subaru. And he was the nicest guy ever. We had a great time. We hung out with him for hours and drank drinks with him. And this dude hung out all night. And the next morning we're like, all right, nice meeting you, Frank. Have a good one. And we left. But strange stuff like that will happen. It's crazy.
Yeah, I definitely I can relate, especially you go out into the woods at all. Anytime there is any sort of recreation at all involved, man, and it's going to get crazy. So if you're on the trail, yeah, you're going to have to deal with, like just crazies and side-by-sides, like getting nuts, and or if you're in your kayak, you're going to have to deal with that guy on a jet ski and like the insanity that comes with that, or folks just like lounging on a dock,
Right.
It's just, that's what Frank, who knew? I'll bet you Frank has a YouTube channel. I'll bet you I'm going to look around for that.
But
I'm going to start looking for Frank. Like, bonjour, Frank. How you doing?
Guy.
That's
great guy. Hopefully he hasn't been shot by a crazier person than me.
That is wild, man. Fletch, this was really, really great. I appreciate you doing this. We love trying to expose like a variety of what I like to call fishing adjacent topics, like things that folks can take a little bit of knowledge from and then roll it into their own fishing adventures. And then I know that we also have a good portion of our audience that doesn't even fish. Like they just think that we're entertaining somehow. And I mean, you guys are amazing. Like it's, who even knows why they listen, but they do. So I appreciate that. But yeah, it was really great having you on. Do me a favor if you could, DM me some type of a picture of you like with your rig or something like that for the cover artwork of this episode when it drops. And this one's probably going to drop next Tuesday.
Okay, cool.
Beautiful, man. Awesome.
Yeah,
well,
thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. It was really, really fantastic. Great hearing from you. I can't wait to hear your next stuff.
Yeah, appreciate it, buddy. Thanks.
All right, cool, man. You take care now.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Folks, thank you all for listening. That was a fantastic interview with Fletcher. I'm hoping actually to get down into his area. Maybe we'll do some camping, maybe at Hoosier State Forest or something like that. Something kind of nice and easy. Love that you guys are listening to the show and supporting it the way that you are. We are amazed that the feedback that has come back. Recently, I had posted a reel on Instagram featuring just a handful of the reviews over at Apple Podcasts just from this year alone. And the feedback on that has been wonderful. Again, Apple Podcast is definitely the most listened to platform for the Jigs and Bigs podcast. But we have a sizable amount of subscribers over at Spotify as well. If you're one of those listeners that's listening on another format that's not Apple Podcasts, but you've got an Apple device that you're listening on, I do this all the time. Just do us a favor. If you could open up Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review over at Apple Podcasts, as that's sort of like the primary element that kind of like feeds the algorithm a bit to help us get discovered by new listeners. And that helps out a whole lot. Big shout out and thanks to all of our partners, obviously, for just being amazing. And we couldn't do this kind of stuff without you guys. Again, if you guys love this show, tell a friend. Let them know. And feel free to call our hotline, too, and voice your thoughts on our little podcast here that we put together. Give us a call on the hotline, the number 413-324-8519. Even if it's just to say, shut up, Bobby, you're too long-winded, that's okay. Let's see. What else do we have going on? Got some interviews coming up in the next couple of weeks. We've got 2 in the can already that are coming up. One of those with Fishing with Becca. She has a little bit more info about a major gear change that she has coming up at the end of October. This is coming up soon. It's happening, and it's a big deal. I'd expect to see lots of really, really fantastic stuff coming her way. Also, we have the 200th episode coming up in January. That is January the 13th. Later this month, we're going to have some ticket sales open exclusively for the jig heads so they can get their crack at it because we only have so many seats available. We want to make sure that we're able to get everybody out there. So we're going to start with the jig heads and give them priority to kind of get their tickets. We then will have them open to the public probably 2 weeks afterwards. And then we'll kind of go from there. These should be a whole lot of fun. As a reminder, the 200th episode is a fundraiser for Veterans Inc., an amazing organization that goes to help out veterans in a myriad of ways, and it's a resource that needs as much support as it can possibly get because it's a big deal. That's happening. And then Joe and I are still planning on being in Columbus at the Columbus Fishing Expo the weekend of February 10th. Yeah, we have a live show that week, and we've got amazing prizes that'll be given away as well, including some prizes from Heat Your Meat, which I still like. I'm floored with that product. I am absolutely floored. We've also got some bait makers that we're working with as well. We're going to fine tune that list and do an announcement of everybody that we're working with that's got some prizes together. I know Martin's Custom Baits is one of them. We have, I believe, Abe Lures is another one that we're working with. All kinds of great stuff that you guys are not going to want to miss out on. Very, very excited about that. Do you guys have anything you want to add as we wrap this show up?
Yeah, I got one little quick thing. So from the September tournament, I've gotten a number of the prizes out, and I hope to wrap that up by the end of this week. Obviously, I've been traveling and doing a lot of wacky shit. I didn't bring packing materials or boxes or prizes with me up to Lake George. I brought jigglers and a good attitude.
There you go. That's what you need.
Yeah.
And a good spinnerbait to catch to hook a pair of lost pants in the lake.
I didn't get the brand on that. I should ask Chris.
There you go. I love it. Oh my God. Hold on. Metal. Zach just chimes in here. He goes, we're going to add a quarterly box for a prize.
Ooh.
Holy shit.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal, guys.
Big value.
Yeah, it is. That's a cornerstone right there. My God. Thank you, Zach. That's fucking awesome. That's amazing. Lots of great stuff coming up, guys. You trust me, you don't want to miss out. We have so much stuff coming up as we go into 2024. The fishing season isn't done yet. It's fall, y'all, but and things are changing up a little bit, but you can still catch them. I do want to throw a little congratulations out there. I just thought about this. Had I thought otherwise, I would have mentioned it much earlier. Alec Plotnikevich has a new boat. He does have a new boat. I saw that he had listed his previous boat for sale and was going to sell it privately. Come to find out, he actually used it as a trade to upgrade. He has a new tracker, and the thing looks sexy as hell. Let's just go ahead and say this.
Hey, maybe BRB will have an opportunity to get on that boat. Maybe we'll see what happens.
Because Alec, you know a thing or two about the waters that I fish, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about them. If that's all from the two of you guys, let's go ahead and wrap this sucker up. It's been another amazing week. Thank you to all of our jig heads that are in the live stream checking this out right now. I know it's a Monday late morning, actually early afternoon. It's like who can be in here, but we still managed to draw a good handful in here, and we appreciate you guys. You guys are absolutely awesome. Much more show coming up next week, as well as the week after that. It keeps going and going and going. We still have a full 2 weeks of action in the scavenger hunt. So if you're enrolled in there and you're looking to catch a veritable buffet of species, now's the time to make it happen. Now's the time to drop the hammer down and get serious about some shit. Stop, no fucking around. There's no rules. Okay, well, there's rules, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Guys, we'll see you next time for more Jigs and Bigs goodness. I appreciate you coming out. You guys are absolutely fantastic. We will see you in 7 days. Remember to tag us in your fish pics because we appreciate that. We're kind of creepers that way. Have yourselves a good one, everybody. And like we always say,
tits and ass spread.
And that is fantastic.